Minutes we have.
Any companion? I see recording. I think we're good to go.
Yeah, that's good. That was.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for your patience. My name is Alyssa Johnson. I'm the Community Visit Program Director at the Vermont Council on Rural Development. And thank you all so much for being here today. I know a lot of work and planning and effort has gone into pulling this together. And we're just really excited to have this time to dive deep with you all. We are using this microphone because we have the Zoom going as well. So this has been warned for the Select Board, the Planning Commission, the Housing Advisory Task Force, and also noting that we have folks from the Our Future Putney Housing Task Force. So folks from all of those groups are in attendance here tonight. And again, we're really excited to dive in. The last time I was in Putney, I was facilitating at Next Stage Arts. It was step 3 of the Our Future Putney community visit. We had 2 prior meetings down at the Putney School, but that was a community visit process. And that's one example of what our organization, the Vermont Council on Rural Development, does. So I'm joined here today by 3 of my colleagues. Work like this is truly a team effort, and they've been the ones carrying this forward. So we have Jessica Savage in the back waving. Danny, you want to wave? Danny Parkins and Lauren Brady, who's helping with all of the logistics. So we're all here today from the Vermont Council on Rural Development. VCRD, as we call it by acronym, is a neutral convener of public processes. We do that both on the town level, like our community visit process. We also do it on the statewide and regional level. We bring together community members to think about issues that matter for their communities, issues that matter for rural Vermont. And so again, we do that sometimes on a one-town basis. We do that sometimes across the entire state. Sometimes we do it through a set process, like the community visit process, and sometimes we do more customized facilitation, like what we're doing here tonight. In either case, there's a couple of core principles. We don't come with any agenda. We are here to serve the community, to support you all. We also don't come with any knowledge of the community. We did a community visit process here. We know a lot has happened and changed since that 2 years ago. So many folks here in this room were part of the planning process that informed what tonight would look like and how we could take next steps together. So that's some of the background of how we show up and begin this process. I'm going to pause and turn it to Jessica for a minute.
Thanks, Alyssa. Maybe a couple other things to mention. We always come when invited. And in this case, in both cases, Our Future Putney was invited by the Select Board, and then we worked for the entire community. And for tonight, we were invited again by the Select Board at the request of a couple of groups in town. Do you want me to give some of the background of why we prioritize tonight? So we had heard from some of the chairs of the task forces, Select Board members, and others about, it's been 2 years since Our Future Putney, and please grab a report. They're back there, and you should grab one if you don't have one. It's been 2 years. We should talk about what's happened over the past 2 years. We should celebrate. We want to go back out to the community, hear from them, and make sure they feel updated and included in what comes next for this work, right? At the same time, there were folks working on different housing efforts in Putney who felt like there was also some work to do internally, maybe first, right? So we had these sort of 2 opportunities that were before us. And the planning group that was thinking about the bigger celebration really said, you know what, we should prioritize this work among the different municipal groups working on housing and the housing task force, so that when we do celebrate, we have some really good collaborative energy to report in that space. So we just want you to know that you're here tonight because that group really said this first, and we're still planning to do a big celebration, hopefully later this year. So I'll pass it back to Alyssa.
Awesome. Okay, I'm gonna have to interrupt awkwardly because the owl keeps looking at the speaker instead of.
Oh,
We'll have to
Sorry,
list
sorry.
it on Zoom as like another person.
another participant, the owl speaker.
Square head.
Somebody pet.
Yeah, Peg's here.
Oh, Peg's here, awesome.
Peg's here.
Lauren's our Zoom runner for the night, so thank you, Lauren.
Awesome. So we'll let Peg come in. Hello, Peg on Zoom, and welcome. Hopefully you'll get oriented in a moment when you connect to audio. So thank you. Jessica laid more groundwork again of how we got to the meeting here tonight. And I just want to read through quickly the purpose of the meeting, which it's on both copies of the agenda, but this was really the set of statements that all the groups that were involved felt like, yep, this makes sense. This is why VCRD can come and help us have this conversation tonight. So the three goals were to build trust around areas where the Our Future Putney Housing Task Force and the town will intersect, and ways to make that work efficient and effective, further community building and housing efforts, highlight how groups can best work together around aligned projects and housing efforts, and clarify the roles, goals, and project strengths of constraints for each group. Is everyone excited about this? All right, I'm seeing some nods, some tentative nods, and just noting, welcome again, Peg and Heather on Zoom. Hopefully you're seeing us. I'm Alyssa from the Vermont Council on Rural Development. We have a number of us in the room and a number of your fellow community members. I might jump agenda a little and maybe pass the mic around, and you all can do introductions of your name and any affiliations. What hats are you wearing in the room tonight, just to give folks on Zoom a sense of who's in the room. So I actually will pass the mic if you all don't mind going around.
My name is Aiden Paradies. I have been on the VCRD housing group pretty much all along. I also am on the town's housing advisory committee and was on the recently concluded housing needs assessment group.
Mary Tomford. I am a new member of the Putney Planning Commission, and I serve as clerk.
Karen Aspeny, I'm the town manager.
Ruby McAdoo. I'm a parent of two kids in town, and I also am the coordinator of Putney Community Cares.
Dawn King, I'm on the housing. I can't remember the name. Housing support.
Housing Solutions Task Force.
Housing Solutions Task Force. Most importantly, slowly I'm adding apartments in Putney.
Connie Richards, I am on the task force as well, and I was on the advisory committees.
Hi, I'm Mike Berwicki, and I am here wearing a couple of hats. One of them is what is now called the Putney Housing and Home Energy Advisory Committee. And then I'm wearing my other hat, which is as the part-time legislator here in the Vermont House of Representatives.
I'm Doug, excuse me, Doug Brandt. I missed those meetings a couple years ago because there were so many cars in the parking lot. It was better to go to Zoom. But I did get involved with the Housing Task Force, and I'm now on the Zoning Bylaws Advisory Committee.
My name is Beck Slattery, and I am a select board member.
I'm Bert Tepfer, and I was involved in the advisory committee thing since the first meetings, and was on the advisory committee of the Planning Commission on the housing needs assessment.
I'm Phil Bannister. I'm on the Planning Commission and a member of the Housing and Home Energy Advisory Committee.
I like that new name. Sue Coakley. I chair the Planning Commission. I'm also here with the hat of Discover Putney. Catherine Steffen couldn't be here this evening, she was invited. And that is another one of the task groups that came out of the VCRD, our Future Putney visit. It was revitalized downtown, but now it's Discover Putney. And I was also on the Housing Task Force when it was established. Was just joining the Planning Commission at that time too.
My name is Marcella and I'm on the Putney Housing Solutions Task Force, but I also wear the hat of a housing provider and someone that's been working in crisis housing.
I'm Elizabeth Harris Warner, and I am a housing provider, and I'm a hopeful VHIP recipient for building an affordable duplex. We're also going to be speaking with the interim president at Landmark College to work towards building some more workforce housing that serves the employers' needs in our community. I'm also currently semi-homeless because I'm going through a very bad divorce and have been taken in by a lovely friend in Putney. So I've been navigating a lot this year. I also Google mapped the entire village with Google 360 for Google mapping, and was working on accessibility initiatives before I had a traumatic injury last February. And so if anybody wants to talk about where we can most improve accessibility initiatives, I know it firsthand. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing. Well, thank you all very much for sharing. Really appreciate it, especially knowing here. Peg or Heather? Let's see, Lauren, here we go. Try one. Do you folks want to introduce yourself on Zoom? I see Peg. Hello, Peg.
Hello, I'm Peg Alden. I'm one of the select board members and I'm also sick today. So I'm home. I will do my best to participate, but I might have to log on and off a few times. So glad to be here though.
Thanks for being here. And a general note, we are recording this, so this will serve as a reference for folks, at least in those report back, share back moments. Thanks. And Heather, do you want to say hello?
There we go. Hi, I'm Heather Small. Interested participant, I guess, can be my title.
Great. Thanks, Heather. Appreciate it. All right, with that, I'm going to run through a little bit of our agenda and then we'll start getting into logistics and be done with the me upfront talking portion. 4:30 refreshments have happened. Thank you to all those who helped to provide them. An open call now for those in the room. Please refill snack at any point. Sorry, were you in the way?
No, I'm in the way.
Oh, we're doing line of sight in the room. But anyway, there's delicious snacks and please eat them because they look delicious. We have four main parts of our time together. So we're in welcome and overview now. We're going to do a bit of visioning present and future together. But then really one of the core things we heard from you all is you all are doing really important work in this community and you don't always know what everyone else is doing. So we have some real intentional time on the agenda to have you break out into all of the different groups that you shared, have some conversation with your fellow folks in that same boat, and then share back to the full room about what's going on for you all. Then we're going to do some shuffle time. Again, more details to come, but just know time with both those folks in all of those different groups you mentioned, and then coming back to the full group. We'll take a break after that, do an activity around strengths and challenges. What's challenging right now? What's also working really well? And what do you want to build on for the future? And then really end the time together tonight with a process for collaboration. What are you all interested in? What are some next steps coming out of this meeting and the time that we're spending together? We mentioned this is a public meeting, so we have time for public comment at the end, but in general, you all were invited given the specific hats you're wearing. So this is really intended as conversations between you all in those roles, but again, open to the public to be witnessed. And we'll close from there. Jessica.
I want to note, it seems like Heather is here as a member of the public. So just really quickly, the role of the public is to be in listening mode during this time. And we're going to do our best to accommodate everybody on Zoom overall. So there might be some moments where in the room is a little bit noisy, but we're definitely keeping it in account when we do small group breakouts. And again, Heather, you're welcome to be in listening mode. Any other members of the public who show up or online, and then reserve any comments to the public comment period.
I think before we transition into group agreements and get going, I wanted to welcome up Sue and Marcella, who have both been involved. We said we work with local community members and they both have been really involved in that. So just wanted to offer them the space to welcome you all as your peers and fellow community members. Come on up.
Sure.
Together.
Modeling the behavior, right?
I'm just really grateful for everyone carving out the time and space in your lives to have a conversation like this. I know sometimes the idea of collaboration can be easier than the work of collaboration. So I just really appreciate everyone coming together with that intent.
Thank you, Marcella, and I'll just agree that it's wonderful to have this conversation. I think we've spent the last year and a half laying the groundwork for some work. Work is happening, but ready to go to the next level, the next scale. And in order to do that, we have to work together, collaborate, build on each other's ideas, and we need all the help we can get, frankly, to scale up, to do 80 new homes in 5 years and weatherize and improve and expand 150 homes, okay? So that's a big thing, and I believe we can do it, but we'll need to work together. So thank you for being here and helping us think about how can we do that work together.
Thank you both. All right, well, collaboration is the name of the game. Am I in your way, or I'm wondering where to stand? All right. So before we dive into that, we just wanted to offer some group agreements. These are things we found from our work together and just acknowledging that we all are coming from different spots to really ensure some productive time together. So I'll run through them quick, have some time for questions and see if they will work for you all tonight. We said, really, you all are already doing this, but open and respectful dialogue. This is about hearing and understanding everyone's point of view. Doing that through some active listening, really listening to understand, to hear from what folks are offering. We know there's been things that have happened. There's a lot coming into this conversation today. The goal of this conversation is collaborative and forward-looking thinking. So really focusing on the what's next, solutions-oriented thinking. Speaking for yourself and using I statements. Again, folks, even within same groups can have really different experiences. So just anchoring from where each of you coming from as individuals in your comments. Step up, step back, folks say sometime, but it's really about sharing the airspace. I'm not stepping back right now. I'm really stepping up. We're doing a lot of speaking, but I won't be at the microphone a lot earlier. So both in the full group and also the smaller group breakouts, being mindful if you're someone who often contributes a lot, maybe holding back and making sure there's time for others. If you're someone who maybe never contributes to the group, is there a space where you're able to offer some comments? Assume good intent. We never know how a comment is going to land for someone else, but again, we're all coming here today with the goal of working together. And we added this last one, I will say just this morning, we learned in real time. We said shared accountability, and that for all of you in the group and also us as facilitators, we are going to do our best to adhere to these as well, but also welcome you all in. Anyone have any questions about any of these, what they mean, what we're getting towards? Anyone have any concerns, things they wouldn't want to agree to? Yes, John.
Our confidentiality, and is that important here, that we not take out into the community what we learn here? Or is it better that we do take it out, or how do you hold that?
Great question. So Dawn has asked about confidentiality and carrying things out into the public. I will say, I think that varies meeting to meeting, and groups have different things. I will say this is a public meeting and it is being recorded. So personally, as a facilitator, I don't feel I can offer anyone confidentiality, just understanding that this is a public meeting. Do you want to offer anything in terms of, being mindful of comments? But I will just note it is a public meeting, so I don't think we can hold that. Yeah, Ruby.
I think that I've seen it, this group agreement phrased different ways. But there's this concept of, kind of owning your, impact, kind of. So it's like, I think it's saying oops or ouch is one way of doing it, but that's the one piece that I feel like is missing from here is us, acknowledging that sometimes I'm gonna say something that is upsetting to you, or I'm going to be upset by something you say, and it's okay to say, that didn't feel good, without getting our backs up. And I think that's something that we all need to practice. And so for me, it's kind of an integral part of group agreements now. And so it's like acknowledging impact and making a plan for impact. And sometimes it can be identified as oops, ouch, but ultimately it's really just being able to say, I'm sorry, or that hurt.
Do you wanna, let's see if this works. Sorry, it's the tech. Do you wanna propose adding that, Ruby? Do you think
I would love to propose adding that.
Adding,
Yes.
alright.
That's my proposal.
I'll do oops, ouch for space if that works for folks.
Can you clarify,
What that means?
yeah, what's an oops and what's an ouch?
Yeah, I can. You want me to do it into a microphone?
Thank you.
So the idea would be that if, I'm just gonna use Karen because she's right next to me, but if I say something that Karen really is offended by, she can say, ouch, like that actually hurt. And just the word ouch, if we get into a practice of it, it's a little bit clunky at first, but once you get into a practice of it, it becomes an easy thing. And you can say oh, you could just say ouch, and I can be like, oh,
Yeah.
I didn't know that. And then I can be like, oops, I just wanna let everyone know that I was not aware of how that was gonna hit. And I didn't have that intention. It doesn't take away the sting, but it just clears the air. And so the oops, ouch kind of thing is just, it's been developed by certain groups. I don't know that it's, it's not everybody loves it. And so like with the school board, we have some acknowledging your impact and intention and like different ways of saying oops and ouch. So oops, ouch is the easiest, quickest way. Is that clear? Kind of.
So I saw some nods on that. Any other clarifying questions? After this, I'm gonna ask for thumbs up around if folks are comfortable working with these group agreements. Is there any questions or clarifying folks wanna ask in order to be able to make that determination? All right, with that, I would ask for folks in the room, and you can do a reaction on Zoom if you want, a thumbs up if you're good working with these group agreements moving forward tonight. I'm seeing all thumbs up in the room. All right, thank you all. I appreciate that. And a thumbs up from Heather. Thank you, Heather. We really appreciate that. I think we just want it supports us as facilitators and you all in the group and how we want to move forward together. That concludes the opening remarks and the logistics. I'm going to turn it over to Jessica so we can all start diving into content.
Great, thanks, Alyssa. Okay, so a group agreement that we didn't name, but is implicit when you ask us to come facilitate something is we're gonna have a little bit of fun, okay? So we thought we would start with an activity that I recently learned, and it's super simple. Alyssa, if you wanna pass out paper and pens, you get to do a little art project. Does that sound like fun? So what we're gonna do, and folks online, all you need is a piece of paper and a pen. So Peg and Heather, you're welcome to do this as well. Okay, and I'm gonna demonstrate up here. So once you have your piece of paper, you're gonna draw a line down the middle like this. And don't worry, you don't have to be a good artist. Okay, so draw a line.
The paper.
Huh?
An artist folds the paper.
You can fold the paper. All you need is one side and the other side. Okay? And then on the right side, you're gonna write future. Okay? And on the left side, you're gonna write present. Okay?
Something can write on or else it's gonna.
Oh, yeah. Here.
Oh, you know what,
take
one
a
of those, yeah.
report. And you have to take a report. There's reports behind you if you need a harder surface to write on. Okay, let me know when you have your artist's palette ready.
Anyone else looking for something hard? Thank you.
All right. Are we feeling ready? Okay, so now what I want you to do is close your eyes for just a moment, okay? Close your eyes, and I would love for you to imagine that Putney has all affordable, it's housing needs and dreams achieved. So everybody who lives in Putney has safe and attainable housing. It looks like and feels like the place that you want to live. So all of the housing goals that you have in your mind, all of the housing efforts that you want to see happen have been achieved. This is our future. Feel that in your body. Feel that in your heart and in your mind. Feel how that feels. So once you're settled in that feeling, what I want you to do is take your pen and on the future side of your paper, I want you to draw a shape. Any shape that comes to you, the only rule is you can't lift your pen. So once you put it down, you're going to draw the shape that represents that feeling that you have when you imagine Putney in the future with all your housing dreams achieved. You don't have to close your eyes for this part. But if you do, you get extra points. No, I'm just kidding. I just think it would be funny to do it. No, you don't have to close your eyes for this part. That was just to get the feeling in your body. Now draw the shape that comes to mind. Don't lift your pen. Get some chat going. All right, is everyone done? Yeah, more or less. Okay. We good? Everyone did it? Great. So now we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna close our eyes again. And imagine Putney now in terms of housing. How does it feel when you think about housing, people who need it, what circumstances people are currently living in, what it's like to provide, support, build housing now in Putney? What is it like when you think of Putney and your housing situation? And once that feeling is in, you can open your eyes, draw whatever shape comes to mind, just don't lift your pen.
Hello, I'm so curious what people drew, and I bet you guys are too. I wonder if you wouldn't mind turning to somebody and just sharing your drawing with in a pair share. Show each other what you drew. Elizabeth, do you want to share with Marcella too? Or is that's a good show for you to show us in the camera.
So this is just an abstraction of a declining graph. Yeah.
Right now.
Very connected.
Yes.
Okay, folks, we're hearing lots of excited sharing happening. I'm curious if anybody's brave enough to share to the whole room, anything you noticed in your pair sharing that you want us to know about.
The future's bright. Right.
Future's bright.
Sunny future.
Okay. Anything you want to notice about your shapes, Marcella?
Definitely the future feels like it's held in a very wholesome way, and the present feels much more jerky.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anybody else want to share? I'm hearing an echo. I hope that
Yeah,
isn't bothering
it's,
people.
sorry.
No, I don't care. I just don't want people online to be annoyed. Anything else you noticed about your drawings when you shared? Were there any similarities between your drawings with each other?
There was more jagged feeling in the present and more rounded, smoother
Yeah.
feeling in the future.
Yeah, yeah, well, great. I hope that was just an interesting way to kind of get you to see how people have some kind of shared, even if you have very different, ways of getting there, it seems like there's a similar sense of what you want the future to feel like, right? Anyway, yeah. So this activity, Alyssa and I have done it recently around, imagining our economy. And so we thought, ooh, wouldn't that be interesting to try it out with housing? And I'm looking at your drawings and it's really similar in terms of, they've done that experiment multiple times over the past like 10 years. And people draw one of 5 shapes for the future and one of 5 shapes for the present for our economy. And I'm seeing some trends that remind me of those shapes. Yeah,
Well, it just reminds me a little bit of, have you heard of the Booba Kiki study? Some anthropologists tried to figure out whether there was like any universal things in human language and thought, like what is the thing we can find no exceptions to? And they found the best signal that they got is that they took a spiky image and like a curvy image, and they would show it to people in hundreds of different cultures and say which one is Booba and which one is Kiki. And they would point to the spiky one and say that one's Kiki and that one's Booba. And as seeing this sort of pattern here reminds me a little bit of that.
Yeah, from universal understanding.
Universal Kiki.
Yeah. Great. Well, I appreciate you doing that as sort of a thought experiment as we enter into a much more practical set of questions for you to ponder this evening. So appreciate you doing a little bit of embodied art with us to get started. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Danny. We are running a little bit behind, so we're going to adjust our agenda a little bit here, but now comes some work and moving around.
10 minutes behind?
About 5 minutes.
Okay. All right, folks, we did the fun stuff. Let's jump in and do some work, yeah? Okay. I do love that activity so much. So glad, like, it's fascinating to see the similarities. So for this next part, we're gonna jump right into the meat and potatoes here. Project and role alignment is where we're going. So this is gonna have some breakout groups. I'll just identify them. Over here in this corner will be the Selectboard. Do believe the Planning Commission is back here. And we've got the Housing Advisory Committee in this corner back over here. And our Housing Task Force in the corner down over here. Everyone got that? Okay, so now I'll try and explain a little bit of like what we're trying to do.
What if you don't fall into any of those groups?
Yeah.
Or all of them.
Some could be with me.
Yeah, we did identify some.
I see a little number or letter.
Yeah, so that's the other part that I was gonna get to. I was trying to identify where the stations were. And you're right, colors and letters matter on our name tags here. So you'll notice that on your name tags, you have different colors and they are aligned with where you need to go. So let me just read through the directions here and hopefully that will help me simplify my instructions a little bit too.
Okay.
So one of the key needs we hear is housing and just project roles and alignment, right? And this activity will provide opportunities to discuss these questions with folks from the same group, and then later with folks from a variety of different groups. There are a lot of instructions, so here we go. First one, we will break into the groups based on affiliation. Each group will have an opportunity to discuss the prompts among themselves and then share out to the full room. So within your group, you'll have 15 minutes to discuss 4 primary points. The first being roles and responsibilities with regard to housing in Putney. The second being current projects and priorities, and you will have these on a piece of paper. So don't worry too much about trying to scribble. I scribble, so forgive me if anyway. The last two here are any opportunities or challenges you're experiencing and any bright spots or challenges in collaboration with others. Now, we've only got about 10, 15 minutes for this activity, and we want the majority of the time to be spent on the first two. So at 15 minutes, we would probably spend 10 minutes on the first two questions there, and maybe 5 minutes on the last two if we have opportunity, okay? Because we really want to make sure we get the roles and responsibilities and our current projects very outlined among each of the groups. Now, in terms of the colors that you've got, we will ask everyone to break into 4 groups. This is based on the dot color on your name tag. So identify your color, and here we go. The committees are the select board and town manager, and that's red. So that's gonna be over here in this corner. The planning commission is going to be blues. It's gonna be in that corner back there. The housing advisory committee are going to be your green dots. That's gonna be in this corner. And then the housing solutions task force will be yellow in this corner over here. Later, we're gonna switch to mixed groups, and that's where the letters will come in, and I'll let you guys know about that when we get there. Okay, any questions? Anything additional?
I just wanted to add, something really quick here is that,
Oh, yes.
so what, did you remember? You said?
No, just, at the end of this, we will have one person from each of the groups report back and share. So, just make sure we're taking notes and trying to, hold on to the information we have in those groups so that everyone can benefit from that when we come back into the large group.
Yes, and one more thing is, we know some of you were extra prepared and thought about this ahead of time. And maybe you came with a printed sheet about your group. We're gonna set that aside for now because we really want you to talk with each other about these questions with each other, which is just as revelatory as when you talk about it with others. So hopefully you can set aside any prepared materials or thinking you've done ahead of time and really talk to each other tonight, okay?
All righty, we ready to go? Any questions?
4 questions.
They will be at the different locations.
We'll have sheets for you.
Yeah, we'll have
At the
sheets.
location.
Was that your question as well, Sue?
No, I was just gonna ask if you're gonna help us manage time. We've got 15 minutes for the
Yeah,
whole thing,
we'll be helping to manage.
Yeah, we'll come
Absolutely.
with you. We're coming with you.
Yep, let's jump in.
In fact, it's with me. Some of you. I think you're the small group.
You're ready to turn this on.
Housing and energy. I'm not your crush. All right.
Yeah, team. Oh, hold both and then. Like that to have Heather with us too. Danny, we have a question.
Yes.
Is it okay if we move over here with Peg?
Yeah, no, we were hoping to have the computer close by, and I know Peg is a part of the group, so.
Right, and Heather can be part of our group too, if that's okay.
We're really trying to just make sure that it's a clear demarcation line for
Alright.
folks that were, connected.
listening.
Yeah, they will be, yeah, and they can listen, and that's just fine. We don't have to do a breakout group or anything.
Okay, so she can stay on there
Yeah,
and just
yeah,
listen.
and that's totally
Alright.
fine.
Okay, but she can't participate. All right.
But Peg will be able to participate. I'm
Yes.
gonna just see. Yeah, let's just have it right here.
chairs.
Yeah, just drag a few chairs this way. We'll move them back in a second. Hi. Are you a member of the public that's coming tonight, or?
I am a member of the public. I'm also with the select board.
On the select board, okay, pleasure. Welcome, welcome. I'm sorry that, I didn't know that we.
Hey Fletcher, you're in this group right here.
That's what I.
Were you invited?
I'm not sure if I was I?
We were trying to keep a balance between folks, so I don't know if it was open to everyone, so we were trying to just get a selection, but you're here, your opinion matters, please.
Okay.
Okay, let's jump in, and I'll just step back.
Okay, so,
Start at the top here, and
so this is the right question, right? Hey Peg, can you hear us? Peg?
Let me just make sure she can unmute.
Oh, the
She
owl is
also
like
might be
right in front of
suffering.
us, right? I hope she's better before Wednesday, cause she's leading the meeting.
For your soup.
All right, I think we should start, because we only have
Get started, and I will
15
continue to
minutes.
work on the
All right, so with regards to housing in Putney, how you would describe your group's role and responsibilities? So, I mean.
Of the select board or
No, the,
the group?
with regards to housing in Putney.
Yeah, specifically.
So
what is the role and
as a select
responsibility of
board
the
member, as a town manager, you know, what is our role and responsibility? So,
Policy setting? I mean, there's zoning, there's a huge impact.
Also, the select board, like, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, like, approved the Camoin vision, and I feel like, so then
Right.
trying to make that happen.
right, so, how do you wanna word that? Is, so support,
Like, staying dedicated to the,
support of, housing needs assessment, right?
Just didn't know if it was.
But not only that, but the town plan too, right?
yeah,
No, it's not locked.
Okay.
I mean,
So she
I have
should
to
be
say
able to-
Yep.
a report, the thing that most alarmed me was the
She may not
number
be.
of substandard.
Because she is
Well,
opting
people-
out.
That's right.
They were homes, but
Okay,
live
maybe
under
just need to
substandard
Right.
conditions.
yeah.
Yep, and Heather is listening.
And the
and
goal
is
being
doing this one
hundred
too.
and fifty
So, yeah.
houses getting out of that category.
Yeah. It's, I don't know how you do it when it's somebody's own home.
Right,
You don't just break down the door and say, okay, you're putting a new plumbing in.
Yeah.
so we recognize, the priority, right? And the substandard conditions. The zoning is being worked on, I mean, that,
And that's a huge task, a
Yeah.
long range task.
so collaboration, right? Collaboration.
I just scribbled and I don't know how to spell.
I
it.
know,
As long as
well-
you can get the beginning, you're good.
I'm still like on vacation time. All right, so collaboration and, well, no, that's not really a role and responsibility though, right? Oh,
Well, I mean,
hang
kind
on.
of, sort of like being a representative or somebody joining other groups as a select board member. I feel like that is
Yes.
kind of, I feel a responsibility.
Yeah. To other groups. All right, so current projects and priorities, right? So the policy setting, right, it would be under there. Zoning is under there, right? Cause you do, well, that is a role and a responsibility of the select board, so. So education, I think, is a role and a responsibility of all of us as leaders, right? Because we have to educate ourselves before we can even, like,
Oh, definitely.
you know, talk about what's going on. And trying to find solutions, right?
Yeah.
But what didn't, you know, is something that.
Even though somebody else might be doing the work. There's still gotta be, you know,
Know what's
aware,
happening, yeah.
right?
That's it.
Awareness.
That's my favorite kind of plan. You come up with a plan, you do the work.
Yeah. That's what I always say. I'm like, if you wanna do the legwork, bring it to me and we'll go to the select board with it. So, so policy setting. I'm trying to think.
I feel like with current projects, like now that this is ending, I'm sort of like, all right, well, what's next? Like,
Yeah.
you know, how can I keep momentum after tonight? Because that felt like it was the goal, and there's so many more goals.
To, achieve goals, right? Any opportunities or challenges you are experiencing?
Another couple of minutes on top, but do you guys think you're super fleshed out? Do you got everything you feel is important on the first two questions?
Oh, right, because the first two are
I
important.
just want to make sure
Yep.
that we
Yep.
cover our bases.
All right. Okay. Current projects. So I think aligning with other groups in the community. Or with other towns.
Oh, yeah.
So I just want to draw attention to.
Okay.
Yeah, that one feels important.
Yeah. Communication.
Karen just said aligning with other groups in the community and or with other towns. Which I think is.
Yeah,
Great.
that sort of, anything we plan on, particularly with such like Rattlebrook, that bleeds into us, so. And housing issues and climate issues, we hope to get on board really quickly.
Right.
But I don't know how we affect their process. We're gonna do what we're gonna do.
Right.
But also in like terms of opportunities, like working with Bellows Falls for different grants, like because I forget what the East Putney is
It's an environmental justice, area.
community,
Yeah,
yeah, and
yeah.
Bellows Falls also is, so
Mhm.
having opportunities to work
Right.
together to get
Yeah.
various grants and different things, that would be.
Yeah, and the thing what I like about working with bigger towns is they have more resources. And we kind of just like, dovetail with them and they provide the expertise. And I think that's a benefit to us.
Yeah, to a degree. I mean, I think there's also risk that their agenda rolls over us. I mean, if we're trying to maintain a small town environment, sooner or later, the development's gonna roll right over us.
So are you trying to determine if that's a responsibility or just kind of thinking of future collaboration opportunities?
Future collaboration.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're gonna be talking about that in like 2 hours. So you guys are ahead of the curve. Yeah, we're getting into that too, so.
I'm a big picture person. I cannot stay like,
That's good.
yeah,
That's good.
yeah,
I think we are to the last 5 minutes. so
Okay.
we're ready.
all right.
Just so y'all know, we got 5 more minutes, so.
I'm trying to think of current. So the other thing too that we have to think about with current projects and priorities is gonna be the water, sewer, upgrade, which is on my radar, but it's just not quite started yet. I know the village, comprehensive village plan is gonna get started too. So that's another project priority, which is going to basically,
It's distinct from the town plan.
yes. So it's gonna look at the village to see where housing can go.
So, I mean, how many more studies can we do before we say, okay, enough is enough, right?
Yeah.
So, but taking all those like studies and, you know, like you said, what do you do next? You know, so we have a 200-page report. And it's like, how do you dissect that, right?
Yeah.
I think it's hard to get your arms around all.
Right.
I'd say that's probably falling in the like challenges part for me is that there's so much to do. There's so many groups and different things, you know, I'm like, I can't be at the
Right.
school board meeting and the zoning meeting that they had.
Right.
And join all of the committees, cause
Right.
that would be chaos, but it's hard to,
Yeah.
I'm eager. Like how to put myself in places that I can be as useful as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And in opportunities, I feel like there are a lot and I'm learning a ton, which is also a bright spot.
Yeah. What else?
That really, you know, makes me wonder what's who's coordinating the activities. You're right, you can't possibly be in all of them.
Or even know what they're doing, you know.
Yeah, so how does this significant information come up? That, you know, get
Yeah, what's the
people-
channel, right?
Yeah.
So,
We gotta really, I believe we have an organizational structure issue.
communication channel, right?
I mean, I really appreciate the planning commission, how they come and give us the monthly report. I mean, that to me is, I feel like a real treat to have that just delivered to say like, this is
Right.
where we're at, this is what's going on. I feel
Yeah.
like I learn a ton and I can try to go to the meetings, but again, I can't go to all of them.
No. So you think it's an organizational structure?
I don't think we've ever really looked at it as overall as an organizational challenge. How do we make sure that what needs to be communicated is communicated? You know, because we don't have, you know, sort of lines of authority. I don't like that word in this context because it's really more collaborative, but how do we make sure that what we need to know flows, well, particularly in our role as select board does?
Right.
How do we know what we don't know?
Right, because, you know, Conservation Commission is, you know, everything is kind of like crosses over. Maybe not directly, but indirectly it crosses over.
Yeah.
So.
I'm hearing you also.
I know, I've been saying, I want to get my friends on all of these committees so they tell me over a beer what is happening, because that's what I want. I want to sit down and just tell me what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's gotta get distilled.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree with what you say to an extent about Sue's presentations. It's also too damn much information. You know, the written stuff is great, but it's also, it's hard for me to pick out what's the significant stuff for us to focus on.
Right, unless you're in the meeting, you don't, just reading it from a piece of paper is like, it's just a piece. You know, and you're right, you don't know how to decipher all of that information. Because what is, you know, what is the, give us bullet points, right?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like Sue has a real sense of urgency to her that she feels like she needs to get all of that. But the effect is that it sort of rolls over.
Okay, folks can kind of move back to this main area. We're gonna come back together as a
Maybe
big
it's
group.
also, I'm just really like
You know, all these things are
hungry
very
for all the knowledge, because I feel like I've been just playing catch up ever since January, where I'm just like, fill me in. But it's not necessarily sustainable to like
Here's
have.
the other thing too, I think time is important and you have to take the time.
Oh, yeah.
To, you know, and don't rush it.
Yeah.
so it's too big.
Can I have y'all?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I've been waiting. Weather's not been great.
All right. Whew. How does everyone feel after trying to do
Yeah, I
that?
think it's gonna, not enough time.
Chocolate, you feel chocolate, not enough time? Yeah, well, there's never enough time, is there? That's how I feel. Especially when we're talking about big things like this, it's hard to try and keep a conversation like that to 15 minutes. But we've got more conversation ahead, right? And so hopefully these next parts will help to kind of fill in the gaps as we share with each other as a group. So now that y'all have had a chance to, confer with with the groups that you're connected to, we need, one person from each group to give about a 5-minute report out or presentation of what you were able to map out in terms of your roles, responsibilities, current projects, and challenges and opportunities, or bright spots, challenges and collaboration. Do we want to just start from the top? Oh, you got it here. Wonderful. Okay, great. Okay, so that means group number 1 would be the select board in town. Do we have someone, Karen, you're wanting to report out?
No, I like wrote all the notes. They're bullets. So we basically answered the first 2 questions. Roles and responsibilities, we discussed education and awareness, being collaborators and supporting studies such as the housing needs assessment study and the town plan. We also spoke about being representatives to other groups. And that may look like, having someone from town government on a, advisory committee or, in a housing solutions, meeting and, but just being more involved and being representatives. Let's see, so current projects and priorities. We feel that a communication channel is a priority. We don't always communicate strategically or because so much is going on with different groups, we don't all come together. We seem to be in silos sometimes, just working. So policy setting was something the select board and town manager are always thinking about. Water and sewer upgrade was a project that we're thinking about. It's on our radar. Aligning with other groups in the community or with other towns also is a priority.
Okay, you got about 30 seconds.
What is next, Danny?
What is next?
So we need that momentum to achieve the goals that we see and that we're working on.
Thank you. I know I'm rushing everybody. 5 minutes is not a lot of time. I really appreciate that, Karen. The next group we're working with, it's going to be the Planning Commission. Who would like to speak for? Oh, yeah. Oh, perfect.
Pass it along.
Alrighty, so speaking for the Planning Commission, in terms of roles and responsibilities from a legal standpoint, the main one for us is regulatory obligations for the town plan. And everything kind of on top of that is in addition to kind of that legal need. So a lot of offering recommendations, collaborating with the public and implementing plans. We have been doing lots of grant writing kind of on a quarterly basis. Most of it is surrounding kind of housing. And a lot of funding does require the Planning Commission to lead in order for it to be awarded some of those funds. the writing of the town plan and engaging the public to learn with us. And making sure that they are engaged in the process of what our priorities are and understanding that, they can be included in this process. And it is important for them to be included in this process. In terms of current projects and priorities, the zoning bylaws modernization is a big one that is happening. We just had a large meeting about that. In terms of writing grants, community involvement, we just got awarded the Transportation Alternatives Grant, which is gonna be, creating a crosswalk across, Main Street between the library and the two banks in town. And that will create accessibility, for all occupants of Putney to cross Main Street safely. We are hoping to model a test version of a housing coordinator services, ideally partnering with Bellows Falls. This is a grant that we are currently in the process of writing. And with that, it would mean creating a qualified contractors network and ideally a low barrier, low cost home improvement fund alongside of that, which is likely to be philanthropically funded. At the end of April, they will let us know if we are getting our grant for a comprehensive village plan. That was a grant that kind of came together very, very quickly. Thank you, Sue. And then in terms of opportunities and challenges, the closing of the paper mill. That was a very big kind of challenge for us, especially after having written the town plan and having that come through. Money. What does funding look like in the next couple of years? Is it going away altogether? Where can we kind of source those funds from to ensure that we're running at capacity? And also the planning commission feeling at capacity. They've been 3 members, now 4. I've joined and we're hoping for a 5th. But it is a tough job with 3 people to run all of the meetings and ensure that everything is up to snuff. In terms of bright spots and challenges, urgency does not bode well with easy collaboration. So things like having a grant that kind of find out about and you need to write it quickly, it doesn't really offer a lot of time for collaboration, but prioritizing that collaboration is something that is important, but is a challenge. And creating a process for talking about things. And obviously the new bright spots would be new planning commission members coming aboard, which is very important.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Next up, we've got the Housing Advisory Committee. Over here.
I'm impressed you're even able to write that much on a piece of paper in
A lot of
15
scribbling.
minutes. This is gonna be less than 5 minutes.
That's okay.
So, historically, the, Housing Advisory Committee, now Housing and Home Energy Advisory Committee, served a number of roles. It served as a liaison between the select board and the community. It sometimes served as a sort of pseudo mediator within the community. And, as its name implies, it served to serve advice to the select board, either scientific advice or simply conveying the otherwise ambiguous will of the community to the select board. Currently, it is somewhat dormant with an increasing emphasis on that newly added home energy aspect, partially because there is so much community energy directed at housing, but less towards home energy. But we do ask that the some of that energy keep the Housing Advisory Committee in mind. So I think that in Putney, we have a bias to have many people wear many hats and have everybody sit on every meeting. And that's certainly productive and collaborative in some ways. But bear in mind that if you're talking about a task or a need which would benefit from being a little bit more siloed and maybe having a little bit more legitimacy, more direct access to the select board, consider handing it off to the advisory committee. Now, granted, that may require a change to the charter of the advisory committee, but we're interested in considering that, so bear that in mind.
Thank you very much. That was an interesting opportunity of trying to discuss like how folks can move projects ahead. I hadn't thought of something like that, so that's really cool. Finally, we have our housing task force okay, Ruby's gonna be talking for the housing task force. Here you go.
Sure am. So the housing task force, this group is actually an amalgamation of, people, as was evidenced by me being put in that group. So, roles and responsibilities, we saw education as an important one, specifically rental and landlord meetings, apartments, ADUs, information about that. Another aspect of that is public engagement. A good example of that was the needs assessment process and public engagement around that. Particularly needing to develop more and better outreach. Work on expanding opportunities for small lots and accessible housing is one of the roles and responsibilities we see. And then kind of an overarching role and responsibility is helping to develop a caring community. In terms of current projects and priorities, finances and how to form a fund for financial support is something that people are actively working on thinking about. ADU 101.1, I'm not part of this committee, so I think that those are the numbers, but that's, yeah, 1.1. So that's a program that's actively in the works. Construction for safety program and searching for overlapping projects. So I think that I need to be in touch with you about that because it sounds like there are overlapping projects. Encouraging innovation and creativity is one of the priorities that we have. So in terms of opportunities or challenges that we've experienced, it was kind of acknowledged that it's important to invite all community partners to the table and make sure that the people who we think of as the doers are there. Trying to put into action some of the goals is challenging. We as a group are not part of the town, and that's challenging and also less constraining. We don't have the open meeting law and the things like that, but we're also not tied in the ways that, something like the zoning commission might be. And then zoning needs. We've identified that as a challenge in terms of changes that need to happen, and identifying them and doing them. Bright spots and challenges in collaborating with others. The relationship between housing supports and landowners, homeowners has struggled, and that's something that we acknowledge. And then the capacity of committees in getting structures in place. Essentially, capacity is limited, and that is challenging. And, there's lots of facets to what that capacity is and what the challenges are, but that's something we see. That's pretty much it.
Great job, Amy.
Yeah, wow. This is where I'm so curious about the crosstalk and the debrief, but we're gonna break back into groups to do that. And then we can report back at the end. So where we were all in our assigned committees and groups to begin with, now we're gonna mix it up. And we're going to have you guys ask two primary questions, or have two primary points. Ask questions about projects or initiatives that you want to learn more about from what you just heard. Identify questions or concerns you have about roles and what you want to address when we talk about collaboration.
Are those things written down or do I need to scribble?
You'll have a facilitator.
Okay.
So hopefully they can remember.
Okay.
They're
We'll
written
see.
down.
Okay, good.
Okay, so that's gonna be done with the letters. So on your little dots here, you'll see that there is a letter in the color there. And so we're gonna have just three groups here. I think group one is gonna be by the computer. I believe, right?
A.
Yeah, group A, yeah, not one, but A, right over here. Group B can be in the corner over there. Is that where we're, yeah. And then group C can be in this corner here.
Okay.
Ready? Break.
You're an A.
Yeah.
A.
We still having our chairs.
You guys, we can have this happen around the easel if you want. I can move.
What about
Peg, so she's here, so
Okay.
I can move her closer. I'll be her proxy.
Lauren, are you writing or?
No, don't worry about it.
I can, you mean,
Chair, Fletcher?
I'm.
okay. I can be the one that kind of scribes things if you want. And I have to warn you, my handwriting is chicken scratch, but I do my best, okay? So,
Work with what you got.
yeah, so let's jump on, this first one here.
Do you want a chair?
Yeah, let's talk about what questions came up for you guys. Do you want to? Yeah, what questions came up for you guys based on what you heard from others? You know, about the projects or initiatives that you want to learn more about? Is there anything that you guys heard that you'd like to ask? Go for it. Popcorn, open style.
Sure. I loved hearing from the select board Karen group about the education awareness piece and wondered specifically what that was regarding, like if that's around town infrastructure or just what was meant by that.
So education awareness, I think it's important that, you know, from town managers' point of view and select board, I'm gonna speak for the select board, that, you know, we don't always know what's going on, you know, from different groups in the community. I think Aiden said it too, you know, it's like having the housing advisory and energy committee, right? Is that the new name?
I'm not even really sure. I don't think I was at that meeting where they
Yeah,
renamed it, but.
so, I mean, like, this is the first I'm hearing about this new name, and,
Me too.
so.
Me too.
Instead of working in the silos, you know, we were educating one another, in a better way. And not being, behind the eight ball when, you know, we're trying to accomplish that. Education is very important, and it needs to be, we need to be ahead of that curve.
Should I be putting that here then? Education awareness is important?
I'm still not clear, so, but so it's education awareness of all the things that are going on, so that you want more education awareness coming to you, not what you're doing for the community.
Right,
Okay,
right.
I just wanted that.
Yeah.
clear.
Could you
so I
give an
understand.
example of a thing in the past couple of years where you think that there was duplicated work or missed opportunities or something like that because of?
I think there's a lot of duplicated work. And if we could channel that in a better way to be more strategically prepared for opportunities when they come up.
Like what? In terms of the duplicated work, that would be so good to know, like where you see them.
Yeah, well, I mean, I see it with the housing task force. You've been doing a lot of behind the scenes work. You know, the housing advisory, I know a little bit because, you know, they're a select board, committee. But, you know, reporting back to the select board and to the town manager in a public meeting, for example, would be great. Kind of like what the planning commission does, right? So, this way there's communication and there can be collaboration back and forth.
I'm thinking about how does that fit with grant writing too, grant opportunities coming up.
Right, so that's a different level too, Connie. And it's important because funding right now, we don't know what's gonna happen.
That's right, we don't.
So if if a group, a task force, or a housing committee says, hey, select board, we should be going after this grant, right? So,
Well, the planning commission has, my view anyway, had basically been, you know, Sue's done a wonderful job, but it's mostly in her, in her.
it hasn't been put there, it was, she's doing it.
But so, I mean, so we,
Yeah.
it would be helpful to just raise the awareness of what's
Right.
available.
The other thing too is, I honestly feel, and I'm gonna be honest about this, that there is a lot going on right now. And if we keep chasing all this grant money and doing all this work, there's only so much we can all handle, you know? So I think we need to start looking at, you know, and having a roadmap of what this is gonna look like and where it's gonna take us.
What I'm hearing, just to make sure I'm understanding from the board up here, is just that there needs to be a better like procurement process that more people are informed about for the grants, or is that kind of what you're?
It can be a process that probably should be defined.
Yeah.
And, you know, how, if the task force is looking at a grant and they're like, oh no, well, it has to go through the town. The town basically sponsors that grant, right? And then, it's managed through the town. So those are the kind of logistics.
So here's what, I don't know the adjective for how I feel about this, but this sort of thing comes up a lot. And it feels like a lot of people wish that there was like a monolithic 25-person team that we take all these 4 groups and put them together, and sometimes people don't like that because they're like, oh, but we would like to be able to be unofficial when we do these things, we would like to be official when we do these things, but like when we talk about coordinating, avoiding duplicated work, everybody's attending everybody else's meeting, like that's kind of what the center of gravity that's being circled around. So I would ask the question, if we're not going to do some sort of consolidation, which is a totally legitimate suggestion, can we come up with better defined roles for the groups?
So rather than making just a larger.
I'm
big
not
group-
opposed to making a
Yeah,
larger
as
thing,
an
but-
opposing idea.
Yeah.
Not opposing, as another idea.
Yeah.
Like a yes and situation.
But I think that the sort of worst of all worlds is where we have multiple groups, each of which is like ambiguously responsible for improving housing. And each of which is going to simultaneously chase its balls and try and tell the other groups what balls it's chasing. So there's overhead.
Right.
What do you mean by overhead? Just like someone needs to be like assigned the role
There's
to do.
note taking, there's broadcasting, there's emails, there's scheduling, there's all that sort of stuff to make sure that all the groups know what all the other groups are doing. And as you were just saying, it's not even enough.
Right, right.
Do you have a model?
No.
I'm noticing Peg has.
Do you have a model?
Yeah, Peg does have her hand up.
Does
Peg?
Does VCRD have a model for the kind of thing that we're talking about?
Yeah,
We can offer
That's a
models,
good
yeah.
question to keep track of. Because we are gonna be talking about more of the collaborations later. And the second point here is to identify questions or concerns you have about the roles and what you want to address when we talk about collaboration. So that's something you can definitely hold to, and we'll have a bigger group discussion
Okay.
to explore that. I like that question.
think that
Are there
would
other questions?
Here, yeah,
Peg definitely
Peg
wants to
has,
share as well.
Hey, Peg.
Okay, hi, can you hear me?
Oh, we can't hear you yet. Hang on. Uh-oh.
Try again, Peg.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. I feel like the two groups that really, between this advisory, the town advisory committee, which has been pretty defunct recently. They've been waiting for the housing reports to come in. So it sounds like they're ready to get more actively involved. So between that group and the task force, I feel like that's where the two, that's where the roles need to get ironed out between those two groups. Because the select board's a different animal, the planning commission's a different animal. But if those two groups could figure out their roles and their role vis-a-vis the town, that would be super, super helpful.
So Peg, tell me again. Peg, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, the task force and the advisory committee?
The town's advisory committee, right? So the town has the advisory committee and the VCRD group launched the task force. So we have those two different groups. And I also think that that's a lot of where this trust building has to happen too, because those two groups really have come from out of very different places. And there's been conflict in the past. And I feel like that
Has there
needs to
been conflict between those specific two groups, or has there been conflict between factions, some of which ended up on different groups?
I don't know. I don't know exactly, but I think that is where we need to build I think that's where we need to build the trust, in the roles there.
I think, Aiden, that's a question you could hold on to as well, just like I was saying, Connie, that might be something that we could try and explore and open up.
Yeah, I'm too new to this to have an answer. I don't know.
Well, hold the question and maybe other folks can speak to it.
Yeah, because I think that would be one of the questions that I have is the Housing Advisory Committee keeps morphing all the time, so I have a hard time understanding what it's about, and the folks that have rolled in and out of the task force that have been a part of that committee in the past have not felt like it was a very empowering situation. And so then that didn't necessarily give me any direct feedback as to what that group is trying to do. I mean, so that would be a question, is actually, if going forward, what is the agenda, what wants to happen?
Let me throw this out as a possible action. Just, which I do not endorse, merely raise.
1 more minute.
Yeah, 1 minute.
Just dissolve the Housing Advisory Committee. It can become the Home Energy Committee and maybe shrivel up and die. We'll see, depending on interest. Everybody who's interested joins the quote unquote unofficial task force. And I don't think that there will be any problems on the select board having them serve informally as the advisory force, because when the select board is gonna want advice on something, they're gonna have a public statement, and Marcella can show up and say, I am, a member of the public, but I speak on behalf of this group, which is representative, and you should take it seriously, and the select board will nod.
Yes.
I know we're running out of time, but maybe a question to kind of leave with, to sit with the group is like, what kind of policy or standard or procedure, it doesn't have to be anything like massive, could we put in place to kind of ensure that that collaborative exchange can be effective?
I want to hear the challenges from you.
I'm sorry,
I'll just
Do you
combine,
understand what I was trying to say?
just forget the titles we are now and combine with to become common members, right?
Something like that. I would say that.
I feel like I would be open to exploring what that would look like, and I also I'm still digesting sort of the structural components of how the task force can resolve a lot of issues that we have already talked about, of just having a quarterly report and those kinds of things. But I do think that the town has a responsibility to housing that's distinct from the community's responsibility from housing. So from that standpoint, I want to understand what is the leadership that's coming from that direction and what direction it wants to go, like the energy, like the new change of the title and the energy piece, because then that helps us empower what that wants to be. And possibly it could come together, but I'm open to however it's most effective.
I think that we're all on the same page here, that the advisory committee of home and energy is nothing right now. So like, if you were to say, let's have the citizen task force absorb the advisory committee, that's not really saying anything, because there's nothing to absorb.
Right.
But like, we just stopped the overhead of trying to run this advisory committee.
Fletcher, you've been thinking and observing a lot. Is there anything you'd like to add to that? Or to what's been said?
My biggest concern is just that not necessarily overlap or conflict, but just spinning our wheels. You know, there's a lot of energy going into a lot of people trying to do things, but without coordination and focus, we're gonna lose a lot.
And it's happened before.
Yeah.
So.
We don't focus.
Right.
Yeah. This conversation, just wrap it up and we're at time, so, yeah, when you're ready, please. Yeah, if you guys wanna take just another 30 seconds, I'm gonna start bringing other.
Okay, thanks, Dan.
Yeah.
So Karen, can you say one more time what you said in the beginning about that it's getting big quickly and we need to?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you put that in, can you say it again? I want to hear you say it one more
There's
time.
so much we can handle. That was your thing.
Yeah, so there's a lot happening right now.
Yeah,
You mean in the town government generally?
With just doing the study, having the committee, knowing that we don't have enough volunteers. So, and I've always, said, anybody willing to do the work, and bringing it to the select board. And that helps a lot.
Yeah.
So I think we need a roadmap, Connie, to like really look at every angle and say, okay, well, this is similar, so let's start, bridging this over here. We gotta bridge everyone together.
Amazing. Maybe you can help share some of that as well in the larger group.
Yeah.
same thing, huh? Yeah.
I think that's a really good
Okay,
point.
Karen, I just want to say I appreciate your view because of the position that you have. You have.
Yeah, like you can have a nucleus, but when you got everybody just like, it's gotta come together. And then it can,
Roadmap. I'm
Yes.
thinking of Google Maps.
No, I think
What
we
do
need strategic planning, and it makes sense, and it
Yeah.
aligns, the financial stuff that we need to do. And the
All right, folks.
resources.
Danny, you'll be visible because you're really close to the app here.
All right, folks, welcome back. We were gonna have a bit of a debrief at the end here, but we're running a little bit behind with the time on things, and we wanna make sure you guys get a break. So we're gonna break for 10 minutes. You can stretch your legs, get something to drink, grab some more snacks. There's sugar, if that works for you, keep you going, right? And when we come back, we'll just kind of fold in some of what we were gonna do in the debrief into this next section. Okay? Thanks.
Long time no see.
food. If you want to keep eating, that's fine. One thing we always strive for at VCRD is ending on time or early. So we need your help in making sure that can happen. So folks want to come back over here? Okay, I know during the break, I was hearing all kinds of conversations happen, reflections, and just wanting folks to remember that the purpose of tonight is really about thinking about what each group that's here, what your individual strengths are, what your roles are, as well as what collaboration might look like. Knowing that each of you play a critical role. Housing's a big issue to tackle, and there are many, many, many ways to tackle it, and you need many hands. So many hands make light work, and tonight is about really thinking about what those many hands look like and how they can hold each other, right? Okay. So what we're gonna do next is you're gonna stay with your letters. So you're in a bit of a little mixed group. And we're gonna do what's called a World Cafe. Has anybody ever done one of those before? Yeah, Mike's done one, Doug. So it's kind of a silly name for something, but basically you're gonna travel as a group and you're gonna move to 3 stations where you're gonna answer 3 questions that build upon the answers of the previous group, okay? So your 3 questions that you're going to think about, and this is really about collaborative strengths and challenges, right? So we're going to be thinking about what do we do well as a collective in collaboration or partnership together towards housing in Putney. We're going to think about where do we struggle? What is challenging to our collaboration? What's keeping us from all working together towards housing efforts? And then the third question you're going to answer is, okay, given that, what actions do we want to take to work better together? What do we need to take those actions? Okay, so it's going to be a bit of a toss up. You're going to start, normally you do 1, 2, 3, right? But you're going to start in a mixed up order. So your group, if you're in group C, you're going to start with the first question first. If you're in group A, you're going to start with the second question first. You're going to be with, group C is going to be with Danny, and you're going to start with that first question up here. Group A is going to be with Alyssa, and you're going to think about where you struggle and what are challenges to collaboration. And then group B is going to be with me, Jessica, thinking about what actions we can take. Okay, you're going to get to answer each question. Lauren's going to keep us on time. She's going to let us know when it's time to move to the next question. Your facilitator will do a quick 30-second orientation. The last group that was here was naming these things. So you're not starting from complete scratch, and you're building answers to those 3 questions. And then we'll do a bit of a facilitator report back. Does that sound good? All right, are we all full? That salad is really good. I knew I made the cornbread. I just shoved lots of food. It's really good. Okay, so the C's with Danny up here. The A's with Alyssa. Where do you want to be? In the lounge? I'm never going to get to the lounge, am I? All right, and then group B over there in the corner. And I will say, folks who are online, if you unmute, it's very hard to hear. Turn down the volume a little bit. There's also a noise. Okay, thanks. Wonderful. This is a public journal. We'll circle around.
I don't have to write. It's my turn, brother. I don't want to be a note taker. No. Very fast. Okay. Well, we don't got a lot of time, so let's do.
We do well.
Yes, this. We do well. For partnerships for housing.
Peg is gonna sit in on this group. And And I'm gonna set Peg over here. You won't necessarily be able to see you, but.
Thank you.
Take those. Can you read my bad handwriting? Yes. Great. Yes. Okay. That we have about 8 minutes to think about this question. Peg, can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, great. Thanks, Peg. Thanks for joining us. Who wants to get us started? What actions? In my group, I'll just name, before the break, we were already starting to think of ideas for action. When it comes to collaborating, coordinating, and communicating among all these.
First thing that always comes to mind is follow suit.
Student, she's gonna get slash clone Sue.
So when I last discussed, I was gonna coordinate for planning.
Yep, and it was take it off her plate and see if we can establish, another committee that can focus fully on the community development fund. So that the funding is there when the housing coordinator is hired, because at the rate things are going, it's gonna be years. And we're not gonna make it for our 5-year plan.
Okay, so establish.
Speak up a little bit so Peg
Yeah,
can hear you.
okay. Well, you can hear us. So establish a committee, who would establish the committee?
It might generate out of us, the Housing Solutions Task Force that works tirelessly. Been talking about this ad nauseam.
Okay.
Well, I guess, well, that's a coordinating with Sue.
I think that was already what Pitt said, but she thought it would come later,
Later, but that puts it in the back burner for
like a year. Yeah, so that
Okay.
was hearing
We're
that.
trying
was-
to expedite.
Okay, so you're saying that the task force could establish a committee, and then this is, how can we work better together? So how would that make you be able to work better together? Or how would you work together on this committee?
Well, I mean, if she wants, if she thinks, and I do too, that the housing coordinator that would eventually come out of a grant would be very useful. Running it, but not setting it up.
Okay.
That's gonna need coordination.
Yep, the distribution of funds coming from the housing coordinator.
Set up a fund running, who's gonna administer it, who's gonna give out the money. And who's gonna decide how much gets to who.
Similar to the way the ARPA funds were distributed and they came up with A level and B level groups, for the funding to be allocated. From town resources, but someone who would administer, the funds.
Okay, so committee and the task force, you're the Housing Solutions Task Force, would establish a subcommittee of your own task force that would establish this housing. I just want to make sure I'm getting the right, okay?
Even community housing development fund,
Okay.
where local smaller landlords or just like seniors who might need to add ramps. I mean,
Yeah.
we cannot be as so overly dependent on federal money. We have to be more, not just small
Revolving
grants, but a
loan, but-
fund that could be accessed to.
The philanthropic fund.
Not so it's grants,
From-
but a fund.
Yeah.
From community, members contributing to that philanthropically.
Private,
Okay.
not a public.
But there might be matching grant opportunities. I mean, there's a lot that can, if we really
So
are.
creating a 501c3.
Okay. Is that, would that? would you
Or,
imagine?
yeah, we're using a 501c that exists.
I think what you have to explore is what's the most useful model to use in creating such a revolving loan fund or whatever you want to call it. Because there are all kinds of foundations that can be donor by funds and, there's all kinds of things that, and I don't know how to sort that out.
And it may be,
Try to learn.
we just had to run the grant that Marcella worked on, through the Rockingham nonprofit. Cause it's not really like we're functioning in that capacity yet, or because there just isn't sort of that openness to it yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay, so again, the question is, so this sounds like work that the task force would do. How would that connect with, coordinate, collaborate with the planning commission's work that we mentioned as well? Or other groups that might be interested in this being established?
One of the things that was recommended by the planning commission, through the select board and accepted,
Yeah.
was just looking at it to develop. the
Yeah.
plan.
Okay.
So it's already on the radar. of
Right,
all
so
the
basically you're saying that you would raise your hand and say, we got this, right? Well, the planning commission is working on the rest of the.
Working on the grant to have a housing coordinator.
Okay.
Yeah.
That would be.
To establish.
No, it has
Because
to be the
that's-
grant for the
that's-
housing coordinator is separate from the fund. And so the housing coordinator with the timeline won't even be hired or in a position of being hired. It's like almost a year out. So if we are establishing a development, community development fund, and then we're raising money already. So this housing coordinator comes in and there's already funds to work with.
Yeah, so from the planning commission side, it is getting the grant to get a house.
Right, yes, and I understand that.
But that would help in the administration.
Okay. Yeah.
For
Okay.
developing, getting sponsors or getting people who want to donate, could be done now.
Yeah.
So groundwork.
So what I'm hearing is that there are two really collaborative or connected ideas, right? Where there's a role for the task force, establishing this fund, maybe creating a 501c3 or exploring a fiscal sponsorship. What options are there for establishing that fund, getting money into it? So that's, you're saying that the task force could raise their hand to do this. The planning commission has said, and we're gonna go find a housing coordinator. And they're gonna help with all kinds of things and maybe also administer this fund or help figure out how that works. How are you gonna, how can you make sure that everybody feels coordinated and collaborated with these separate but connected? What is that?
Well, I mean, all this past year, there's been a great collaboration between the planning commission and also our group, volunteer group. And so the advisory for this housing needs assessment was basically our group.
Okay.
So there's a great working relationship there already.
Okay.
Just met Mary for the first time. That sounds great.
Okay, we have one more minute here.
Well, yeah, so the working relationship's already there. It's not like there's no barrier. That's why I say call Sue.
Yeah,
Because
I think, yeah, continuing to be present at planning commission meetings, and having that time is within the planning commission agenda.
Building building on what we've already been doing.
Yeah.
It's not a big step, but it does require some coordination.
Yeah, because then at least it's this kind of reporting out of, this is where we are, this is the status, here's where we're expecting to be, kind of. Yeah.
Okay.
That'd be a public, private, public partnership.
Yep. Yes. I love this. Is there anything else when you think of the other groups that we've heard from tonight, the select board or the other, housing advisory group? Like, that has kind of.
It's not really functioning. And it hasn't for a long time.
Okay. Okay. Well, this is a great.
It's really glad to have
Sounds like.
What we're talking about in the other room was like, well, if the select board on board with the planning commission wants to do, yeah, that's the third leg here.
Sue was meticulous about going through the select board with everything.
I've just been really good.
Yeah.
communication. It's not that disjointed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And most of this is built off of the original VCRD, which is really kind of incredible.
Yeah.
You know, so, yeah.
Like, you know.
Like you birthed something.
Oh, well, you
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, did you have anything to say, Peg? Did you raise your hand?
Okay, sounds good. I just want to add one thing that came up in our earlier thing was that we, the Housing Solutions Task Force and all of these town committees, be tasked with communicating directly by law and zoning so that with our recommendations.
Okay.
And
You have been tasked?
No, requesting in a more formal manner, not just that it's been brought up at law. A more formal, formalized, recommendations,
Bylaw,
suggestions. Yeah.
Zoning changes.
Says are in the heat of it and that is needed within the next.
Hey,
2 to
we
3
gotta move. You gotta move.
Okay, cool.
Picture of the group.
Oh, whoops.
I was looking at.
Oh, okay, well. Well, we have a very focused group right now then.
Yes,
Huh?
correct.
Okay, let's get to it. Our question is, if I can find it, so we're on the other page. What are we doing well as a collective, everyone in the room to collaborate? In terms of everyone in this room, how are we doing collectively to collaborate around housing? We were just talking about that.
Let's get over it. Great. Good. Thank you. That's wonderful. Why?
Hope for the first time in years. And I come around to be much happier. There's sort of a better overarching person leading the planning commission, and is a very, very trained in
Coordination.
Noting that there are.
Talked about is a good deal.
Compared to where we were, we have come so far.
But the question, well, right now, the bylaws is an example of the planning commission as an advisory committee that made some of our people. The people in town. All those things. That are basically ideas.
So you're saying coordination is well, there's coordination needs. Yes.
Which is why our housing solution task force has been wanting to work with the Rockingham and with Gary Fox and the Dunbars who've come and done presentations now for years. And how well they've been collaborating to raise funds to create housing and to get the community more engaged. And there is a much better, we need more turnout, we need more capacity, so. I guess one piece I keep coming up with is, like, when I ask a lot of these questions about the zoning, I have not gotten anywhere with who would our liaison to the state be to request for these zoning bylaws to be statewide, like why aren't we doing gray water collection statewide? Why are we so outdated and sticking with status quo? Are we so redundant in Montpelier or whatever that we're all just still with the same?
I'm not sure. Those are massive questions I would love to dig into.
Yeah.
Actually, the question at hand right now, how are we collaborating? 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I could spend 5 hours.
We're way better, but we have more, more to go. And I think bringing in our schools all of our schools. We need to do more of that. What are we doing well?
I'm sorry, I'm gonna keep bringing it back. We gotta hold down on this. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, showing up like this and having good intentions at these meetings of we are all in this together. and understand.
There have been so many communities. It's like unbelievable numbers of meetings. where you do that, okay? Pleasantly surprised.
And I think that
There is now the acknowledgement that this is. This is how. Want to do something about it. And that we're concept, but at least have the same goals.
So we have similar goals, but not maybe the same path to get there.
Yeah, I mean, there's some coordination. If you're talking about the schools here are the biggest employers. But
Yeah.
it's not just that they're there, but they
Provide a lot of jobs.
And I think,
I can't hear any of.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Peg may just have had to go.
But I think this is.
Oh. Heather, you can't hear.
No, she put up a some.
Maybe that's why, she didn't come up with something.
I guess not. I'm sorry. I thought that. Go ahead.
I think the.
Yeah.
It's one more general thing I've talked about. Anything cohesive. Community healing. This is happening. It's also there'll be a community feeling, not just like.
A positive community feeling. I think we'll really feel connected. Okay.
Talked about briefly about the sign. Say that everyone on the Old Depot Road neighborhood does not want that sidewalk, and the cost is absurd, and that there was alternative ideas pitched, and they were somewhat dismissed, and it's really unnecessary when people bring their kids to this dead end road to learn how to ride their bicycles, to put a very expensive sidewalk and have 5 easements and move poles. It just disrupt an entire very quiet neighborhood where I personally own property, and every one of us is like, what is this for? Who is this for? And is it because a certain larger organization is kind of dictating a lot of what's happening, and they are in our zoning bylaw committee, and I'm even afraid to say the name of the organization because I've been so brutally attacked in this town that I almost left it by choosing it as a 15-year-old and coming back to it as an adult and doing everything I wanted to do.
That's super hard. It's like tough when there's that much.
Especially when I brought housing online for a fraction of the cost and used all local contractors.
So would you say that perseverance is a good?
Yeah, there is a lot of, we keep meeting, let's just.
Yeah,
we keep
there's a lot of
meeting.
perseverance.
We have
Yeah.
tenacity and perseverance.
Sorry, Laura, if that's.
Okay, all right.
Technology glitches are.
I think Heather can hear now, and we're just.
I might try it, maybe log on and log off, I guess.
She was losing steam anyway. She
Yeah.
said she's, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Why did it go back to? Oh, just because I'm talking.
Anything else for how we're collaborating well together? I know it can be tough to try and stick to like something specific, because I mean, there's so many different interconnected pieces to this conversation. that-
Lucky for you, it's also time to wrap up.
No, well, wonderful.
That's good.
So I think, yeah, you guys get to, you came this
Yes.
direction, yeah, you're going that way. And so you get to talk about what actions we can take to do better. Which I think that, I'm sorry, it was Elizabeth?
Yeah.
You've got lots of ideas what could be done better, so this next group will be for you. Yeah.
Birds heard them.
Hopefully the rest of us get to as well.
faction is not represented in the group, they just say, I'm going to. Or, you know, I'm gonna quit this
Yes.
one.
You need that? In theory, muting it is,
That side, okay.
yep.
Okay, I'm not here to send you on your way. It's excellent.
That's right.
Yeah, and the owl is apparently they're not able to hear. Sure that's. Let's see. Get them to talk to each other again. There we go. All right, it's.
She's in Florida right now.
And then,
No. Right.
there we go.
Yes.
So you all have
Your happy
done,
spot.
you're back in the den. To dive into challenges, you all have done the what's going awesome, what are the things we can do? Here's what your peers and colleagues came up for challenges for you to build on. We have challenges around perceptions, that everyone's coming to this work with their own views and perceptions. How do we honor all of those? Questions around motives and transparency, like, oh, hi Heather, hi Sue. We're reviewing challenges from the past group that have been brainstormed, hopefully you're hearing. Gossip in town was a challenge to collaborative work. There was the phrase like, what housing group are you part of, has come up for folks. We named volunteer time. You all being here tonight was noted as being unusual, but for a lot of folks who are already volunteering for the community, say, can you volunteer even more to collaborate on your volunteering? Can be a bigger ask. And the fact that this work is being done right now, someone said Putney's human capital is a lot of people with 90-minute chunks of time. And that just in terms of coordination can be really hard to kind of move big initiatives forward. Some interest in expanding volunteer capacity, but how do you plug in? How do people know how to navigate that? Volunteers want to know what they're serving, and there isn't maybe that transparency yet. Same folks can be involved in a lot of efforts. We had some conversations about language in a lot of different ways, just saying with housing work, affordable housing, senior housing, that was language that folks already in town had started moving away from because they felt like people might be kind of alienated by it, but that's continuing to evolve. Some people don't want change in Putney, and that's a dynamic, that's a challenge to collaborative, and they also noted those are not folks who are usually here. This is Ruby's word, dispersiveness of the project of creating housing. This is a thing that's gonna take a lot of people on our spaces, and that's just hard for collaboration. We talked about accessibility, especially, again, folks not in the room here, but like, it's dense, it's technical, it's complicated. How do we let folks know they can plug in? People saying that there's people living in horrible conditions now, and as part of this work, how we're serving them. Again, just the general messaging and framing ties in a bit to language, but, you know, is affordability a way to involve more folks, particularly when this would be positive for the grand list? And I think
Sue noted that, you know, there's really like goals and a set of action, but there is not the framework and the setup right now to have a way to really move it forward collectively. A plan and trust and accountability to say, we all want to get to this point in housing and how are we all pitching in? So a couple challenges. Curious if you all feel like there's things that are not here that are important.
But one of the challenges I have is that I get frustrated by how long it takes to get things done. Like we were just talking about how long it's gonna take to get a housing coordinator who might then do something about this, you know, and the grant has to be, and you're talking a year before that can possibly happen. So, I mean, the time frame on some of these things is so long that I have to fight against myself to say losing momentum. And then the concern I have of losing momentum, people want this to happen, but everything seems to take so long. Even this process to get, I was frustrated at how long it took to get the needs assessment done.
Well, we were already doing it, and then it became, it was kind of taken off our plate, but our data was already generating, and I don't know, because we were, our community task force were somehow relegated to lesser importance, is how I don't know.
Well, it was felt an official consultant and report would be carry more weight and more value. But anyway, which is, you know, another question, but I could see that, but still, everything that took another year to get that done.
And money, and we're all volunteers, and.
So I'm worried that I might say, come on, already.
Yeah, me too.
Burn out. So,
I've been tireless to a point, but.
well, I mean, yeah, it's important to be so keep.
I zoomed in from a hospital bed, for God's sake.
So I got a couple, I had timelines. I heard maybe, and let me know if this reflects official and unofficial channels saying like we were doing this, but it wasn't the official town thing. So just the relationships to and burnout, very important to put on here.
Yeah, because how do you get more capacity when there's been, you know, things in the press have been very divisive and not really, I don't know, supportive of more collaboration. Divisive versus supportive of collaboration. I don't know if I'm coming up with the right wording for that.
Well, yeah, I don't think that's bad, but. The timeline is really.
Thank you, I was like, this looks on here. Spelling in public is a big yikes. Okay. Anything on that? Challenges on that collaboration?
Talk about collaboration.
I'm curious kind of about buckets, so I'm gonna have to come back and talk to the room about, all right, what are all the things we heard? And to me, there's like a couple, that's what I'm trying to think of real time here ahead is like, I think there's a piece around this perceptions and transparency and gossip and divisiveness, kind of like the swirl, the social stuff. I'm hearing some stuff around language and naming. And then a lot about structure, like.
Can I say the word NIMBY and how that word is a weaponized word? And it is, I'm a YIMBY, and yet I've been called a NIMBY. So it's a yes in my backyard, and I was called a NIMBY in the press at town meeting day by our local representative who's here tonight, and I almost had a panic attack because I was in the same room with them. And I don't know, it's like, I'm afraid to bring it up in the bigger group even. And a number of people who were the appellants who were not happy with this project, who were long time seniors. One of them lives in Putney Meadows and one of them is a Wyndham College graduate. They have really struggled with how toxic our leadership has been towards them. And really, they were advocating for safety studies, they were advocating for Act 250, and frankly, Peter Paget, the housing trust, is a brilliant guy, and he added a 25th unit at the last minute, knowing that Act 181 was coming forward, and that we put it to a priority build status. Nobody knows that unless you dig deep into all of it, you read everything and attend every meeting,
That, no, I hear you, and I just wrote it down around like all the language where we just, I mean, you're saying much more than that, I understand, but.
And it's a big transfer of wealth and power into a large corporation, which I don't necessarily feel builds community in this little town. You know, where money is leaving the town and where a large conglomerate is overseeing significant amounts of affordable housing. And it's an organization that is under siege with a lot of problems, like they're not managing what they currently have. And
Yeah, no, I hear, so there's a lot there.
and we're rubber stamping and pushing only that. And I'm
I'm
still.
gonna check with Heather, who is stuck with us on Zoom. Heather, I'm so impressed. Do you have anything you want to add? Yes. This is great. Hi, Heather. Anything you want to add? We're talking about challenges to collaboration. Let's see. Can you unmute? Done. Let me see if I can do it. Ask to unmute. We're good. What do you want to add in?
Maybe, does it work? Some of it I missed out on because the sound was, it was like being underwater. I think the fishbowl might have had better clarity. But specifically to this group, I can really align with some of the ideas where we're talking about people who have been accused of NIMBY. Looking at that particular conglomerate, their other units don't provide anything to the community. It's really, really frustrating. And I totally am with the frustration party on that piece. I think one of the bigger frustrations for me is the alignment between affordable and low income housing. They're not synonymous, and that really has been used that way. I think other than that, the big thing when it comes to housing for me is the study that came through. We spent money on it and told us what we already knew, that if you're in Putney, you can't afford to be in Putney. And I don't think that however we choose to build housing until it becomes actually affordable, not just low income, but affordable housing. Back when we did farmers' homes, so people could afford to buy single family properties, we're not going to see change. And it's too expensive to live here because the area pays so poorly.
We have to head back because you have to Zoom so we can transport. So we'll head back, but thank you. I added a note on that and we'll have more time at the end.
Problem is that.
Well, this.
How you doing? Hey, come on back. I know this is a marathon of an evening. I just ran a half marathon on Saturday with my sister. And miles 10, 11, 12. That's where we're at. I mean, you guys are easy compared to that. Okay, so we're gonna do some quick report outs from our facilitators here. We'll hear from Danny first. I'd love to hear from what are your top needs and ideas. And Lauren's gonna do some, we'll do some recording. I can try. If you want me
Yeah,
to.
if you can try.
My
This
handwriting's
is,
not as good.
Just turn it on. All right, so we're just recording now on the way. What is working well? So one thing that was coming up very consistently was just that people show up. There's a ton of enthusiasm around participation. Another thing that I was really hearing a lot of is that There's positive energy and goodwill overall towards housing developments in Putney. Some other really big ones, there were some specific projects where collaboration has worked very effectively. Like the needs assessment and home improvement weatherization activities were really big. Let's see. There's an overarching kind of sense of taking care of each other that I think was coming out of the groups as well. People will take time to share information. People will take extra time to listen or to reach out when they need to.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything else you want to share? I'm just moving this along for time.
Yeah, no. A lot of innovators and creative thinking.
Yeah.
I think was another one that came up in all three groups.
Thanks, Sandy. Melissa, you want to go next? What was challenging?
Wow, and Rich. All right, I brought the challenges board over because it helps me. Sorry, everyone. Obviously there was no challenges. We lounged in the comfy chairs and had a great time. Thanks everyone for attending. There was a fair amount. I think we filled 3 pages. To the best of my ability, there was kind of a couple of big categories. One was about this work in general. A word that was used was dispersiveness, and just the fact that this is a big, complex problem that's going to require a lot of different types of solutions. And in and of itself, that's a challenge to doing this work at a more granular level. There's things like we have a plan to do this and we don't yet have a structure or a mechanism for a lot of different people to be able to plug into that work and move in the same direction. Some of the more tactical and logistical things that came up was everything from gossip being really hard, and communication, but also things like language. How are we talking about this work? Does everyone feel invited and included? Everyone here today in the room, but also out in the community, a number of community members who might be interested in this work. How has use of language evolved over time? And then the last piece was really around, again, kind of these mechanics and just naming that a lot of this work right now is being held by volunteers, by a lot of different volunteers, by volunteers who are already doing a lot of this work, sometimes in small chunks of time. And again, just in terms of collaboration, it's asks that are being put to volunteers. And that just adds a level of complexity for collaboration. Again, a lot more detail here in the notes, but thank you everyone for sharing.
Thanks, Alyssa. All right, and I'm in the action corner over here behind Danny. And I would say there were 3 main themes. There were 3 groups, and maybe that makes sense. So in the first group, we really noticed that there's a lot of really good potential and actual work that's happened between the Housing Solutions Task Force and the Planning Commission that we can build on. So an example of that is, could the Housing Solutions Task Force be the one to really take on the establishment of this housing fund idea while the Planning Commission works on getting the housing coordinator established, and really noting some mechanisms that have worked well between those 2 groups that we should enhance or keep doing more of. And then there was another set of ideas really around creating that plan of, we have some goals, we have a whole implementation plan even, but we haven't done the work. We haven't slowed down enough to be like, okay, which group's purpose is clearly defined and they could take this on during this time frame, right? So we talked about everything from a Gantt chart, which is like a timeline project management tool, to really creating a detailed, using that Camoin plan to really create that detailed roadmap where everybody sees what their work is and when it needs to happen. And then we talked a lot about like other groups that eventually need to be brought into the conversation, right? So we're starting with the inner circle of folks who are involved with housing in Putney, but there's the next level. There's other groups in town like Discover Putney. There's other groups in other communities that you are starting to partner with. There's other nonprofits. There's other housing developers that you need to have conversations with as well. And so there was some ideas around how to do that specifically and generally. Okay, thank you, Lauren. Really good writing up there. Look at that handwriting. I have terrible handwriting. So when people can actually do this, I'm like, oh my God.
Okay, so now we're in the last marathon stretch here, and because of that, Danny's gonna do a little energizer for us, if you're willing.
You guys willing to do just like a quick energizer? We're just trying to get the body moving so we can get.
Right on,
Jesus
sure.
going. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, so, if you don't want to participate or you, feel like it's too much physically, that's fine. It's really, really simple. We're gonna shake our hands and our legs, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we're gonna count down. We'll do the legs, then we do 1, 2, 3, 4, then 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1. Does that make sense? Yeah, well, it just helps us kind of wake up. A little. Okay, so. No problem. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1. Here we go. Oh, man.
Looks like you've done that before, Danny.
Now we're ready for the hokey pokey.
Yeah. You know,
Energy.
yeah, you didn't know VCRD had all these tools in our toolbox. Okay, so the last portion of this evening, we have about 45 minutes here where we're gonna really think about the process for collaboration. So we named a bunch of ideas, we named a bunch of challenges and strengths. And really, this is like the how. How specifically are we going to do that, right? So we're gonna just do some brainstorming. We've already started, so the ideas are seated. We're gonna brainstorm things, and Danny's handing out some cards because then we're gonna use those to gauge a temperature check about how people are feeling about some of these ideas. And then we're gonna think about which group is gonna do what as a follow-up, okay? And I just should name, we're recording this and we're also documenting this. At the end, you're gonna get all this back. So you don't have to keep notes, you don't have to keep track. We'll give it back to you as like a little mini report on the evening, okay? Quick question.
These will all be written out?
Yeah. Yeah, you get it all.
We're gonna turn them into a report.
Yeah, full service. And I also want to name that, oh my gosh, I lost it because I answered your question. Oh, shoot, that this process does not replace or supplant any official business of any of the committees in this, right? So some of these ideas might actually need some official select board motion or a planning commission to do something, or, we're not replacing that. Tonight, we're just gauging what people think is a good idea. And then we'll figure out what needs to happen next. And that might mean something official during another public meeting. Does that make sense? Okay. So who wants to get us started? How could we do some of this good work? How could we identify roles and roadmaps for each initiative? How could we do this? Do you need some help? Okay, go ahead, Marcella.
What if each group
Okay,
contributed to a greater strategy plan that was focused on the actual coordination of those things?
say more. I don't quite understand how that would happen.
So for example, if the task force is working on creating a fund or is working on an ADU project, that would be written up in such a way that then would be coordinated with the other things that the other groups want to do so that capacity can get addressed from a town perspective and from a resource perspective by seeing the whole picture together and looking at like that Gantt chart kind of thing. So it could be a distributed process that comes back together. Does that make sense?
It does, and I guess, to me, it's like, well, what first question maybe? Like, how would that happen? Like, is it
what the groups want to do, what the groups, how do you do it? Maybe in a little more detail, and you could think about that for a minute, but, Phil, what do you want to say?
What are we doing seems like a question that would precede how we do it. I don't have a brilliant idea about how to achieve that agreement, but I think that we could pretty quickly create a list of sort of housing related issues in town and then see what feedback we get from the members of the various committees about those issues and maybe rank them in their importance. So if you already, if the task force is already working on ADU issues, that seems to be addressing a very specific area of need. So it'd be interesting to just stop for a moment and acknowledge what that area of need is, and then see that the ADU work is addressing that. So if we could come to some agreement, I mean, I don't know, maybe there are 6, 8, sort of big buckets of need that you could isolate and then start to divvy out the tasks, see what people think are important, who's doing what, why.
Okay.
And then Marcella's idea about having a much more dialogue where the individual groups can contribute to what they think are important areas of concern under those big buckets.
Okay, so you would ask each committee to say, okay, these are some areas of need for housing in Putney. Which ones are most important to your group? And what are you doing or what are you willing to do about them? Something like that?
Yeah.
Okay, and how would
Maybe
that
trying
happen?
to develop what that list of needs is. I mean, I think it was sort of outlined by the Camoin study, that
Okay.
there's a, you can talk about, workforce housing, affordable in the.
Yeah. Okay, all right, great.
Affordable in the
thank
classic
you.
sense of affordability.
Sure.
Whatever it is. We know enough.
Yeah.
A few of us, if we got together, that I think we could outline the big categories and come to some agreement about that.
Okay,
Then a conversation about how to start to approach the work in those categories.
okay, great. So for this activity, I need any and all ideas. This is great. Big, bold, fine. They're all welcome. We're not judging. Okay, so if somebody says an idea, we're like, great, that's your idea. I'm gonna either add to it or I'm gonna come up with my own idea. The other thing I wanna say is specificity is queen here, because there's all different ways to approach this, right? So we really want to think about an action idea here that is really specific in the, like I've also heard you say, we're going to identify folks from each group that would come together to maybe establish this process. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Could be.
Okay, all right.
Let's add that, that's a good idea.
Reps from groups, establish process for, I don't know what to call this quite yet, but we'll come to it, I'm sure. Aiden, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, just ever in the crusade against long and ever looking for fewer and better meetings. I'd like to point out that all the groups, leaders of the groups are in the room right now. So perhaps we don't need to leave this as an action item. We could have, point number one, each group contribute to a process for addressing that here and now.
Thanks. So do this now. I will say that we probably don't have time, even if we stop doing the rest of our agenda right now and we said everybody wants to do this, I don't think we would have enough time to give that enough energy and attention. At the same time, we've been talking with this planning committee about it tonight, understanding that there might be more that needs to happen after this meeting. And I know nobody loves 50 million meetings, but I just want to name, I hear you. And as a facilitator, I can't make that happen right now.
So, a practical opportunity to do some of this work of clarifying who's doing what, how, and what together
is seeking funding for the work. So I think of the Camoin strategies as a framework that we're trying to move forward, and there is kind of a sequence in it. And the planning commission has been following what are the funding opportunities to implement it. So when you get only 2 weeks to write a grant, there's very little time to really think deeply together, but there is another opportunity with a due date of May 14th that is going to be quite important to some of the things we're talking about here. So a practical thing to do is for folks, I'll be leading writing this grant. I've offered that last January, actually.
Which grant? I'm sorry.
It's Environmental Justice for New England. It's a grant for healthy and efficient homes to set up a process that would involve at least initially 2 towns, but could involve more towns to implement 3 things under housing coordinator. And that is the thing of providing technical and project management assistance to people for their projects. This can be for new, repair, weatherize, add an ADU, but home projects towards our housing goals.
Okay.
But that role has several things. So the role includes this project management technical assistance to people and connecting them to programs, incentives, what can help them do it. That's one thing. The second thing is to build a qualified contractors network with links to apprenticeships to build the capacity to do the work that we don't have right now. And the third part, which I've heard the task force wants to take on, is laying the groundwork for this home improvement fund so that it can be operating with funding as soon as possible. And to do this in a way that could serve Putney, but to set it up as something that could serve multiple communities and piloting it with another community, Bellows Falls, which is also an environmental justice community. Putney's an EJ community, and so is Bellows Falls. And so I just want to say that is a great opportunity there. I can stop there. We won't solve it tonight, but this would pull in quite a lot of what people are saying is, we all know is important to do.
Okay. So what, maybe what I'm noticing is this is an artifact or an example of a thing that would require us to identify agreement on who's doing what, right? And so this is a real-time opportunity, call to action for you all to figure that out. Maybe this could be your pilot. This could be your baby pilot that you try it out on, right? Where, I mean, not that you haven't been doing a lot of things together already, but maybe you're like, this one, we're gonna show what's possible if everybody really understands who's doing what. What do you think?
I think it's an idea. We've been talking about a roadmap.
Yeah.
I think I've been saying this at other meetings, but we have a 5-year project, break it down into 5 elements.
Yeah.
This is the first year project. Right? This is what we can get done in the first year. It makes sense.
Right.
And so it's mapping.
Okay, so do this. So this would be your idea. We'll do this for the first year and then map out the rest of the years as well, maybe using what this was talking about. Okay. I need my agenda for 1 second. I just want to keep us on time. Other ideas for potential structures and processes. Some ideas that we came with pre-populated were regular check-ins between, we could go simple here too. It doesn't have to be like the big everything, solve all the problems. Regular check-ins, shared tracking tools, dedicated points of contact between groups, anything like that. Spur any ideas from you all? Yeah, Marcella.
Well, we've agreed to do like a quarterly report. So through some previous conversations, the task force agreed that doing a quarterly report for the select board and the town would be an important way to improve communication. And so it feels like there's ways that can contribute to the other groups and that in addition to that, we're definitely open to whatever the other group needs are for increased communications. I think that's just, yeah.
Okay, say it again. I apologize. I was doing a time check.
So it's just a quarterly, because we.
Quarterly check.
Yeah,
Quarterly report
for the select board.
on the task force?
Yeah, exactly, on what's happening for the task force, as needed, more so as needed, but at least a quarterly report.
Okay. Okay. Other ideas?
Does it make sense potentially to have a body that is meeting more frequently to do that overlap?
So how would you do that? Like reps from each group meet monthly?
Yeah, something like it's like Putney Housing Coalition, something that it's bringing in, because there's also like Putney Cares, Ruby Left, there may be overlapping projects, and it may be, for example, that the task force doesn't need to have an organization, but it just does project-based work that fits within different places within the larger region and community. So we get to actually keep ourselves as a real ad hoc group without all that kind of organizational overhead. And then we can really use our energy to focus on projects, generate them without overhead, like capitalize that on that.
Yeah. So are you proposing a big group meeting where all the groups have a super meeting, or are you proposing representatives from each of the housing involved groups, which maybe aren't, this isn't a complete list tonight?
Yeah, I mean, I think
meet
just like,
together.
just like, I think it was like, it felt really productive when me and Connie and Karen and Sue met. And then we could quickly just figure out what might be needed in terms of communication. I feel like we've earned the trust of our groups and our members. They're busy, they want to build housing, like they have a lot to do, so they don't necessarily need to be a part of every damn thing we do.
Right.
And they're happy to say like, great, just come do your report or whatever. So I think it just could be small groups that can move quicker to make decisions.
Okay, okay. Okay, I think I captured it. I think I did,
So I wonder if that could actually become what happens under the Housing Advisory Committee. Does that become the place where we come together to talk about housing work and, you know, what is going on and where the overlaps are, what are the funding opportunities coming up? What are we doing to build on each other's efforts? You know, can we use an existing entity to be that coordinating work and give that a key charge for that? So that would be just, how do we use existing capacities in new ways is kind of my question, and that might be a way.
okay, great. Other folks who haven't had a chance to contribute ideas, and then we need to start doing a temperature check on these action ideas.
I just want to add one thing.
Yeah, let's go.
I wasn't fully aware that, we need to be submitting to the planning commission for the bylaw, the modernization of the zoning bylaws. Any suggestions that we have in a more formal way? I go to meetings, but maybe something coming from the Housing Solutions Task Force, all of us meeting, and we each have groups here submitting to them so that they are incorporating that into this very critical piece of bringing new housing online.
Okay, so each group, not just the task force, I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand what your point was.
They have a 2 to 3 week timeline
Okay.
to receive suggestions, perhaps goals, and ideas that could become part of the zoning bylaw modernization, so that we can facilitate more creative housing and more opportunities for local developers and community members to bring on housing and to improve housing.
Right.
So,
Okay, so
there.
you're trying to say that it needs to happen, or?
They're in the middle of this process. I did just attend a meeting, but I feel that we need to present to them in a more formal way. a lot of these ideas. I mean, I might say over and over again, I want the neighborhood development area to increase to all the pink zones, all the sewerable areas and the acknowledged areas where spurs could easily be added on so that we are able to see forward for more housing.
Right. So you're saying that you just realized that tonight and you want to make sure that people.
Yeah, that it should come to them more formally.
Yeah, it should come to
They
them
have a
more
lot of
formally.
things they're processing.
Okay,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
I know that, so you've had a few chances here, so Mike, what's your idea for? How could we collaborate better? What's a process we could use?
The first caution
Yeah.
that I try and bring is, I don't want to put more on the desk of our town manager or the select board. And what's come up, listening, there may be an entity that's thinking about housing that could be the group to bring various groups together. And I wonder if Discover Putney might be that entity, as housing and business is, what's one of those pieces that really goes together well. And I know Catherine's not here, and I don't want to volunteer something for somebody who's not here, or maybe we do.
So what would their role be in all this?
Perhaps that coordinating entity to bring together.
Why do you feel that that is more natural than the housing and home energy advisory committee? Is that because you think that that is indirectly the select board and this would be burdensome on the select board?
Yeah, I don't think so. But again, the advisory committee is just that, an advisory committee. It's not an action. And this is thinking out of the box a little bit.
Yeah, so it's an idea of like, there's another group that could maybe provide some overarching coordination among all these different entities that's outside of the town government that has 501c3 status, et cetera. Okay, great. So these are all good ideas. Anybody who has not spoken at all have something that they're burning to offer here? Okay. If not, then we get to do some fun temperature checks. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna read through all these ideas as best I can, and then you have cards. So green means go. Green means go. Green means great. Okay, you like this idea. Okay, yellow means maybe, but I have some questions, concerns, or not that great of an idea. Red means no, I do not like this idea at all. Okay, so what I'm looking for, I'm going to star ideas that have more than 7 or more green cards. I'll star them. Okay, we'll see how we do. And then hopefully we end up with a few ideas that we're like, yeah, now we're gonna think about exactly how to make those things happen. Marcella.
I just have a question about capacity. Do you could like an idea? Is it just, do you like the idea?
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with your.
Yeah,
capacity
no,
to be
it's
involved
just,
in-
we think this is a good idea.
Okay, great.
We're gonna help you think through how to do it. Yeah, it's okay. This again this is a brainstorming activity and a we like it activity. And then for sure, we're gonna think, not just you all have to come up with how to do this. Same with the community visit. We're gonna take back everything we hear tonight and we're gonna come up with some ideas, both like what you could do process-wise, but also some resource ideas for how that could happen, okay? So we don't have to worry about capacity or resources right now. Okay, so first idea, I'm just gonna start where we are here. So this timeline for suggestions toward the zoning updates, this formal request. And again, I'm not sure this is an idea really about how you're gonna coordinate and collaborate, but it is an example of it. So we can say yes or no, whether we think it's good that it's happening. So 2 to 3 week timeline for suggestions towards the zoning updates, a formal request from the Planning Commission to the Housing Solutions Task Force to get them those suggestions. So if you like it, green, meh, yellow, red, hate it. All right. All right, I'm seeing more green than anything, so I'm gonna give that a star. All right.
Can I clarify, as a planning commission member, it's
Yeah.
a general request that if anybody has anything they'd like to have the planning commission take into consideration in
Sure.
regards to the zoning regs, please let us know.
Yeah.
At your earliest convenience.
Anyone can do it, but this is a specific request for the task force to provide suggestions.
This is a green light with a timeline on it.
With a timeline, 2 to 3 weeks, yep, Aiden. Question, otherwise.
Question and point of order. I
Yeah.
think that with this group, all of these are gonna get mostly green or many of them, so I would humbly suggest that maybe instead of looking for a set number of greens, you write down the number and then we'll like take our top 3, because otherwise I think you're gonna have like 7
Right.
stars.
I don't know. We don't know. We don't know what's gonna happen. I wanna do this activity. I promise that if I'm starting to see you like everything, that's also an indication of the will of the room. The point of tonight is what do you all want to do together? Right? What do you have what ideas do you see working for you when it comes to coordination and collaboration? Okay, so whether you like all these ideas or you like one of these ideas, that tells us something about this group, right? And that's what tonight is all about. And I know it might feel really basic and elementary to some degree, like, let's do these things, let's just do these things. That comes next. We were asked to facilitate a meeting based in creating trust, coordination, communication, and collaboration. So it's okay if it feels a little clunky to you. Will you let me just try it? And then if you're right, then we'll talk about it. Okay, I promise. Okay, so environmental
I'd love to
justice.
be wrong.
So there's a grant right now. There's an environmental justice for New England Healthy Homes grant. Defining this housing coordinator role and to really make this an example of how you're gonna all connect, coordinate, collaborate together, and make happen as your year 1, we did it, gang thing. Great, I'm seeing a lot of green. Yeah, there's some unanimous green. Yeah, all right, so like together is the key word. Double, we'll give you 3 stars for that, great.
That's like counting the green.
And then I'm gonna put, I think that some of these ideas are the same, but tell me if I'm wrong. So I think there's a temperature check on this roadmap of 5 years that's connected to each group contributes towards a process for addressing the housing strategy that is connected to these areas of need, that we come to agreement on the housing needs, we divvy out the task, we create this basically like a timeline and a 5-year plan for who's gonna do what, based in things that you've already said are important for the community to address when it comes to housing. Does everyone think that's a good idea?
Yeah.
A yellow for me, but otherwise, yeah, some green, okay, great. And I'm gonna just put it by this one, but understand that it's all those things. So the other action ideas we have here is a regular report from the task force or more. And I would say maybe that's an idea for other groups to be doing a regular report as well.
The planning commission does it monthly.
Yeah, so there's a monthly planning, so a how about sharing quarterly reports among all the groups, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that's a good idea?
Yeah. We add a quarterly meeting, and not just a.
That's the next one. Yeah. Do you want to put them together or the 2 separate
Yeah,
ideas?
I could put them together.
Okay.
I would vote.
All right, we can put them together.
Yeah, you develop the quarterly.
It could be
report.
a quarterly meeting of all the groups, which produces one joint report.
Right, yeah.
Okay. An amendment to that action idea, you want to make it that instead? The quarterly meeting of all the groups that produces a report based on updates of what everyone's doing? What do we think of that idea? Is that feeling like a lot? Okay. Green. Seeing a lot of green. Raise your cards up, keep them up. Okay, all green for that one. So I'm adding these 2 together and giving them all stars. And then, is there any that I missed? Discover Putney.
as a coordinating entity for all of this work? What do we think of that? We're not there yet. We're not there yet with that one. Okay. All right, so did I miss any? Reps from groups? No, I think that's all of this is all part of the same big 5-year giant planning thing. Marcella?
I didn't want to speak up, but we're also working on another grant already with Sue and the town
Okay.
around getting money for ADU development.
Okay.
I feel sad that it's not on there with the environmental justice grant.
Okay, so would we say also the ADU work is good to do
Yeah,
that?
well, it was a
It's part of the.
a community development block
Yeah.
grant is what.
Yeah.
And ADU. Okay. Okay, so again, it wasn't everything, Aiden. It was a lot of things though. And definitely two really big ideas that everyone seems to have a lot of energy for. Okay, so any quick ideas for resources in order to make this happen? And I invite my team to also think about this as well. And again, we're gonna take this back home and really think about, okay, if they wanna do this big road mapping thing, what could VCRD or others do to help facilitate that to happen? Marcella?
Project coordination.
Project coordination.
And also like materials, sometimes like with the reports and educating our community, which increases engagement. I feel like there's material support, and I don't know if that comes from. Anyway, it does feel like there's some funding that is there sometimes for community development when it comes to communication and education materials. I feel like that would be helpful for us as a team working together to be able to attract more volunteers to support our work.
Okay.
More messaging materials.
More messaging materials, but also coordination, like what you guys did here. It's so amazing to have the support and the help to bring us together. I don't know what, we just definitely need more coordination help.
Yeah.
One of the things that I saw up there from the grant, that Sue outlined, was contractors. You know, education about, that's pulling people in. You know, that's a specific task kind of thing. Funding is another specific task.
Grant writing.
You know, so I want to know about meeting together so that we all, as a group, have common understanding of what the grant actually says and what the tasks actually are.
Okay.
So that we can make some ideas about, you know, how to implement them.
Okay, so meet to understand the EJ grant. Okay? Other things? Phil?
Bert, just as an aside, said it hasn't been written yet. Yes, I
Sure.
think it's really valuable because writing those grants, you suddenly are putting into writing a whole, your wish list becomes very clear.
Yeah.
And the process often gets clarified before writing the grant. I wanted to just bring up the sort of naysayer side. I think we should be planning at some point, if we don't get the grant, to rethink how to achieve the goals that the grant was intended to meet.
Yeah.
And that's because we don't know. So,
Can I call that Plan B for the grant?
yeah. So I think we need to think about a plan B, think about when we need to think about a plan B.
Okay, okay. Lauren and then, or Aiden was first, yeah?
Yeah, Aiden is first.
Aiden, okay.
Well, just on a similar note, the reason I raised the yellow card for this 5-year plan is because it seems to me like 5 years is a arbitrary and difficult time frame to pick. Because these grants that we apply to this year and next year, they may take 5 years to fully come to fruition. But I don't think that we can usefully say, 4 years from now, we'll be applying to this grant, and in the fall of 2028, we'll be applying to that grant, because if what we really mean is just do what we plan to do this year for the next 5 years, that's fine, but it's not really the same thing as a 5-year plan, because as soon as it goes sideways, we need a totally new plan.
I see what you're saying. It's like The plan is like a living plan, or is it that you want to define it?
It's like
more
we're
clearly?
talking about a 5-year ambition as a plan.
Ah, okay. Okay. Is it okay if we consider that? as
Well,
like-
sure, but I just wonder if some people in the group actually wanted like to pick out things where you can say, this is what we will be doing at this point in the distant future, possibly unrelated to the grants that we're starting now. Maybe some people had different ideas of what plan meant.
Okay. Yeah, so we should define what we mean by a 5-year plan. Okay.
We should
Lauren.
plan to.
Yeah.
Planning commission, don't we?
Lauren.
I wanted to call out a couple of specific resources that I've heard you guys name throughout the evening, including Vermont Housing and Conservation Board was specifically called out.
Okay. UCB, yeah.
And I assume you're working with your RPC, your Regional Planning Commission as well. I just wanted to name, like, you've got specific external partners who can support whatever your goals are, and you can draw on them. VCRD is obviously one of those. We're here tonight, but those are some of the others.
Yeah. Other resource ideas?
I'd like to.
Resources that you need, yeah.
The Homes for All toolkit, I'm not sure what's gonna happen with funding for that,
Yeah.
but, we sort of snuck our way by accident into kind of being a slight bit of like a pilot along with the other pilot towns. And so there was a lot of talk about creating networks and supports for small emerging developers, and the state seems to be very excited about more small emerging developer plans that distribute the creation and ownership of housing. And that feels right where our group has been focused. So I think finding more what's happening with those resources is good.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just online yesterday trying to find out, because that's their next phase is the small developer support.
Right.
I'm gonna go to Elizabeth and then go to Amy.
One of the pieces I missed earlier is that collaboration more with the employers and Matt Hoffman, who is new to the RPC and Landmark College, brought this up at a roundtable meeting early on with Camelon and Associates. That there is a real need for shared equity model housing for employers and for people who have more opportunity to build generational wealth equity, and that affordable housing isn't just simply rental housing.
Right, thank you, great. Ethan, and then we'll go over here.
Yeah. I just think it should be written down that when we say Plan B, it needs to specifically include the possibility that pretty much all federal funding and all state administered federal funding goes away. I think a lot of the time when we talk about these things, people treat it as some combination of obvious and uncomfortable, so it doesn't get explicitly noted, but that's a serious possibility.
Okay. And over here, what's your name? I'm sorry, Fletcher? Fletcher. Yeah, Fletcher, your hand is up.
You're on the yeah, yes, no, you sure? Did you have your hand raised?
No, I want to say something.
Bonnie had her hand raised.
Okay.
No, you're walking over here. I agree with you, Aiden, about the 5-year plan, and I think, you know, defining what that means for us. But the other thing I wanted to say too was, when it came time to write a support letter for Sue's last grant, I want to say that it'll be easier going forward to write those support letters the more we're involved in the actual understanding what the grant's about. And I think that support letter is really valuable in order to winning the funding that we're looking for.
Great. So yeah, I'm adding that to your point there. Karen?
So I'm just thinking outside of the box right now. If federal or state funding goes away, and we've talked about Discover Putney, but is there another agency that can be a quote bank for lending money? And I don't mean a bank, but you know, I'm looking at like Vermont leagues of cities and towns, as a, you know, or another bigger agency.
Yeah.
Where there's less risk and liability.
Sure.
And not only for Putney, but for other towns, maybe county-wide.
Yeah.
Or district-wide.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, we are just about at time for the public comments, so unless there's any other resources we want to make sure that we put down here, we are going to take this back and do more of this thinking about how you can make these big ideas happen. Mike?
It just reminded me, sometimes the Boston Fed
Oh, yeah.
has programs like that, that are able to plug into.
Boston Red.
Yeah.
Sue?
Yeah.
I just want to comment on one thing about writing this grant, that if we don't get funded, it doesn't mean the project can't go forward. Sometimes the very process of writing it down, everybody gets clear and you find other ways to get it funded. I have a long history of that. And I'm excited for all this energy to come together around that, because even if it doesn't get funded, though I think we have a good shot at it, we'll have said something that we can say, now how do we move this forward and where else do we take it? And there's a lot of other resources, and we named even more of them in the action plan. So this kind of conversation, I think, gets even clearer when you have something very well defined about where it can go. So I welcome all this input.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Sue.
Something I wanted to add that I've been hearing, it wasn't stated explicitly, is an asset map or like more regional supports around.
Yeah.
I've been hearing that in different forms, so I just wanted to get that away.
Okay. Asset map of regional.
So it gets on there too?
Yeah.
I still think having more support for dialogues within our community around development, so that we are growing our capacity to be a positive development environment, and that we get clear as a community what partners feel like partners that the community is going to get rally behind and are easy, and what partnership, you know, positive partnerships, and what does partnership look like to us? How, you know, how do different partners feel to us?
Sure, great. I don't mean to cut you off, Aiden, but we did warn a public agenda and it is at public comment time. So I'm going to turn to Danny, and anytime we gain back, because I think we only have one member of the public on, we'll turn back, we'll wrap up this activity. So go ahead, Danny.
Okay, so now that it's public comment time, Heather, if you're there and you would like to add or share your thoughts about what you've heard and observed tonight, you're the only one, so, you know, take your time, but maybe about 5 minutes at most, okay?
Sure, yeah, take my time.
Hold on, I can't hear you. Okay.
Oh, sorry, can you hear me now? Yes, no, maybe?
You're good to go.
Okay. Long story short, because I could definitely take up, you know, a whole hour with my opinion. A lot of things seem repetitive. We seem to kind of be kicking the same can down the street months and months and years later. It would be really nice to pick something and have some forward progression. I think the big pull in the area is affordability. It comes down to, you know, things we've known for years and things that studies have shown is that if you live in Putney, you can't afford to live in Putney. You know, pay in the area is awful. We went through this report that told us that people who live in the area can afford a house at, you know, $160,000, but prices are up over $400,000. Looking at the statewide reassessment, I wonder how many of those houses are going to be on the line for foreclosure because they can't afford to stay in them anymore. So I think part of finding housing is sustainability. I'd also like to shy away from things like the synonymization of affordable housing and low income housing. Creating housing can still be single family. We did it back in the 70s and the 80s with Farmers Home. We developed neighborhoods with, you know, 1 to 5 acre lots and capes, ranches, and splits. And it was affordable. People could move in and start families in neighborhoods and contribute to living in a town. But that's what I have, long story short.
Thank you. Sir. Do it.
Another one?
Yeah.
This one works.
Yeah,
I've learned not to turn it off. I don't trust it.
I know, it's tricky. It's like, wait, that's supposed to work. But thank you so much, Heather, for contributing to the meeting in that way. And I'm really glad you were able to come and watch tonight and be a witness for this big dialogue that we just had. I think that's it. No other public comments.
Great, thanks, Danny. Okay, so we're gonna end in about 10 minutes. So for the final 10 minutes, I'd love to we're gonna do a little reflection as a team, but I'd love to, if there's any last thoughts or reflections. Really, this whole experience tonight, it might have felt like, whoa, a lot just happened, but what did we really do? What's gonna happen next? Any feelings you want to surface right now, thoughts, reflections? I'd love to invite a couple of popcorn style comments here. Yeah, Don.
I think this is very valuable and yet it's not very, I guess what I'm more concerned of as a housing provider and a builder is practical ideas of the cost of building materials is only gonna go up with the tariffs. It's already, you can't build a rental unit now and charge a rent that is reasonable for people because it's just too expensive. And these are all really important things, but I would really like to see some nitty gritty because that's where I am, I'm building. So.
Thanks, Don. Any other reflections on what we did this evening? No? Okay, well, I'm gonna ask our team to do that. Alyssa had to step out. She's talking to the Sunderland Selectboard right now in my car, I think. So we're your end team here. Danny or Lauren, do you want to kick us off with some final thoughts and reflections?
Yeah.
Is that not working? I'll get it.
Yeah, wow, lots to review and cover. I think the biggest reflections that I'm pulling from tonight is just the immense amount of positive energy, despite all of the challenges that I'm really seeing from everyone tonight. I do also think that in terms of just plans, there's lots of incredible ideas that may need to be further defined, but they're on a path towards greater collaboration that I think could be really productive. Some other things is just I know that there's like this huge like gulf of absence with federal funding and the other things, and that can be really challenging. But what I've been hearing a lot is just more regional coordination, and things like this are what allow communities to come together to find more creative solutions during these times. And so it's really inspiring, and I'm glad to be a part of it.
Yeah, I'll echo some of what was said, but I want to really draw attention to the fact that nobody's stopping you from doing your wildest dreams of collaboration, right? I mean, you guys are all here in the room tonight and you've been making progress, you've been learning about what each group is most passionate about, et cetera. And I really see you taking some steps. I hear you on it's not the nitty gritty yet, but you are getting somewhere and you will get a report out of this. You will get some concrete things here. And that means that you can keep taking those next steps. And I know it's time and effort to get each other together like this. Obviously, we were working closely with the planning committee or planning group to help make that happen. But you've got some great cooks in town and you can do this again if you choose to. So I really want you to see that the power to do this kind of collaboration is in your hands and it is achievable. And I really believe you all will get there.
Yes, I agree with that. And I guess The other thing, I came in tonight, I didn't know if you were ready, right? Well, it's possible, I didn't know if you were ready, and I'm leaving here tonight thinking, you're absolutely ready. Yeah, we could have probably stopped the meeting halfway through and said, change of plans, we're actually going to help you create your Gantt chart. We're gonna start talking about it, but you weren't ready until you came together tonight and agreed to have the conversation about roles, responsibilities, projects, and to have that collective energy pulled together, right? You have to start at the speed of trust, right? And this group has been working at different speeds and doing different things. And now I feel like you are ready to do the real deal work, right? So I really want to applaud you for all the energy and effort it took to get here tonight. I want to specifically thank some people. So I want to say that we want to thank the fire station for hosting us here. They were very accommodating and helped us with the tech and everything. I want to thank Karen for organizing this space, Sue for the tech support and the mini quiches and like the salad. Warning the meeting, you took care of that when Karen was on vacation and worked with us to make sure, we don't know anything about warning. This is new for us to have to warn a public meeting. As VCRD, we don't typically have to do that, so thank you. Bex, Marcella, and Sue for the food, and anybody else bring food tonight? Donna, what did you make?
Connie, I brought biscuits.
Connie, biscuits? Oh man, this food was really good.
I brought flowers.
You brought flowers?
Yes.
It was so good. And I just have to say that VCRD is really only here because we're receiving MTAP funding, Municipal Technical Assistance Program funding, through a grant from AOA. And other sources as well, and an MBRC grant. And we fundraise for all of our work. We never charge communities for our actual facilitation. So just have to shout out to that. And then like I said, we're gonna create a report. This meeting is recorded, but we're also gonna give you some written documentation of the evening ideas for next steps. And then again, we didn't come in here knowing exactly what could happen next, but now I see where you want to go. And so we're going to try to shape that into some ideas that you could then take forward. Mike, did you want to say something?
One more thing,
Okay.
you guys,
Oh.
awesome work.
Yeah. Influence. You guys are awesome. Such a great town and really such great energy. And you can do this as big as it is. I know you can. All right, so we'll be in touch really soon. Make sure you take some leftovers with you.
Yes.
And take some flowers. We do have, on your way out, you can recycle your name badges and grab one of these facilitation feedback forms. We don't usually do this, but we'd love to know how we did and what your thoughts are, because this is a different kind of, you're so.
Thank you so much for making the change.
Of course. All right. Thank you, everybody, and have a great night.
Thank you.
And then
Oh my gosh, I love that's perfect. She dipped out. She had to run.
She's in my car. We're all driving together home.
Right.
So I'll make sure she gets it.
All right.
I'm gonna end this meeting on your list.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, I.
Sue.
Yes.